Hello? Hello? Let's see. It looks like we're live. Wait for some folks to show up. Ah, there we go. Hello, guys. How you all doing? Hope everyone's doing all right today. You all ready for some more adventure? Did I get the robot masters that I was wanting? I didn't want anyone. I wasn't really hoping for any in particular. I literally just going based on what you guys were saying. Alrighty. There we go. There's the chat box. Make sure you scoot that over just a smidge. There we go. Okay. Oh, actually, I just realized that cool image of Eggman that I put behind it might end up obscuring the text. I didn't think about that. Once more people type, I guess we'll know for sure. Whoops. Oh, that's super obscured. Okay, bye, Eggman. Cool. I thought that'd be a fun idea, but I did not think about the functionality of that one. Oh well. Okay. Once I'm done with this story mode project, am I going to do a post an edited video about it? Excuse me. Yes. I would like to make like a higher quality video, going over every little aspect of like each individual world. Like I would. My idea is that I would like it to have each world be its own video. But I do want to include drawing in those kinds of videos as well, which I still am unable to do, unfortunately. I was supposed to. My doctor was supposed to refer me to a hand doctor, but I never heard back from her after she said that. So I'm probably gonna have to do my own little my own research and like find a hand doctor near me so I can get properly diagnosed. Because this is taking too long, and it's getting on my nerves. Do I still need help with Bayonetta? No, I think I'll be fine with Bayonetta. Like once I can do the proper research with her and like actually like go through her games and such, I should be okay. But we're not going to get to Bayonetta today. Hopefully we get as far as the Miis, because that's as far as I've gotten. I've got as far as the Mii world. But just like before, we're gonna go through these one at a time. I'm gonna talk to you guys about each of the mainly the enemies of each world, starting where we left off from last time, the Metal Gear world. With the themings being like it's a jungle wilderness as well as an army base, as well as it being just a general maze-like level with lots of traps. Like it definitely also and the enemies also reflect that with being very aggro focused. Like they can be a little tougher to deal with generally unless you sneak by them or sneak up on them. So, like, starting with the weak enemies of the Metal Gear world, we have the light infantry troops. So these are just basic militia soldiers. They walk around scouting the area. If one spots the player, their first action is always to call for backup. When aggressive, they fire at the player using an assault rifle. If you're in a spot where they can't shoot you, they'll throw a grenade in your direction to try to smoke you out. If you're too close, they can swing their firearm at the player to knock them away. They are able to pick up and use items, and on a rare occasion, you might catch one sleeping and vulnerable, but it is easy to wake them up. They are also easily distracted by noise, so if you throw like an item like past them, that can turn them around. And in terms of a variant, there are riot shield troopers as well, which for the most part are the same, except they carry big shields that absorb damage from the front, but you can break the shields by doing enough damage to them, which then turns them into normal troops. Next we have sniping troopers. They hang out in a stationary spot, usually in an elevated location. They can stand, crouch, or lay flat on their stomach. They have a wide aggro range, so they can spot the player from further than most enemies. When aggressive, they'll try to snipe the player. You'll know one's aiming at you when you see a red infrared laser on the screen. When you get close, they'll try to knock you away by hitting you with their rifle. They can pick up and use items, and they're also easily distracted by noise. If Resident Evil was getting a character in Smash, would you rather the character be Leon and Jill, or one like Nemesis and Wesker? Well, I feel like it'd be like either Chris or Leon, one of those two, wouldn't it? Probably Chris, since Chris is kind of the main face of the series. Anyway, next we have camo troopers. They always ambush the player. They typically stay invisible, but their camo can fail. Can fail occasionally to give you a better grasp on where they are. So these are just invisible troopers. They fight with knives and try to stab the player. They use silencer firearms to shoot at the player. They can also lay landmines on the ground that explode when stepped on, and they can also pick up and use items. We have sliders. So these are like the robot like wing things. Like I think you see these in both Metal Gear 4 as well as Metal Gear Rising. I think they're a little more prominent in Metal Gear Rising. They fly forward in the air, usually fly in squads of 2 to 4. They're quick, so they're hard to hit, and they tend to keep their distance. When aggressive, they can shoot missiles that explode on contact at the player. They can swoop down to ram the player. They can fire their mounted machine guns at the player. They can do a backflip to swing their firearm at the player if they get too close. And occasionally, light infantry troopers or sniping troopers may use them as jetpacks to fly around and shoot the player from the air. When you do enough damage, the slider is always destroyed first, just leaving the trooper, and they can also drop off troopers, then fly off, or just fight independently. More often than not, though, you will see them be used as jetpacks. Next are dwarf geckos. So these are the little orb creatures with the hands, like they're just covered in hands. They drop in from the top of the screen right at the player. They usually appear in swarms. They like to dance and taunt the player because they're little jerks. When aggressive, it jumps at the player and tries to slap them with the top arm. They can lunge at the player for a tackle. They can also lunge at the player and try to latch onto them, and if not shaken off quick enough, they'll explode on the player. And they do have a variant in the form of the human dwarf gecko, which is just something very rare and just funny. It's just 2 dwarf geckos that are stacked up to look like 2 arms and 2 legs. Some will appear like this, but others can, but very rarely. Sometimes 2 dwarf geckos will just choose to form into one on screen. They know Kung Fu, I think, and they can try to kick you. Kick is a strong word because they're just hands, so they're kicking you with their hands, I guess. That's a thing. Ciphers. This is the last weak Metal Gear Solid enemy. Flying drones that patrol the area from the air, moving in a set pattern. If it spots the player, it alerts all enemies nearby, BJ. All enemies nearby. When KO'd, they explode, which can hurt the player. And they do have a single variant that's a little more... Because, yeah, normal ciphers are harmless. They just alert other enemies. But there is a rarer variant called gun ciphers, which do have mounted firearms to shoot at you when they spot you. You know, on top of also letting everybody else know that you're there. Alright, strong Metal Gear enemies. We have heavily armed troopers. They walk around patrolling the area. If one spots the player, their first action is to always call for backup. So, these are like the light infantry troopers, except they have bigger guns. They also wear body armor, so they take slightly reduced damage from all attacks. When aggressive, they fire at the player using an RPG rocket launchers, with rockets that explode on contact. They can shoot at you with handguns if you get too close to shoot their rockets, and if you get right next to them, they may also try to kick you away or stab you with a carving knife. They can also pick up and use items, and they're also easily distracted by noise. Next we have tanks. A slow-moving giant machine that cannot leave the plane that it sits on. In order to be active, a troop-based enemy must be close by and enter it. All weapons mounted on the tank can be aimed. It has machine guns that can deal quick chip damage, a cannon that fires that can fire fast-moving, long-range missiles. It's also heavily armored, so it takes reduced damage from most attacks. It will take normal damage from explosions, so kind of referencing how in a lot of Metal Gear games, whenever you fight a tank, you usually beat them by throwing grenades. The trooper piloting the tank may also occasionally stick out to throw a grenade, but while out, they expose themselves to attacks, allowing the player to defeat them and leave the tank unmanned and vulnerable. But if another trooper is nearby, they'll attempt to take it over. So the idea. So I don't know how many of you played Mega Man X. Do you remember those enemies where they fight in like the heavily armored mechs? But occasionally you might find one where like the pilot is like standing next to it, and you have a chance to like just kill the pilot before they can get into the mech, making it a lot easier, because normally fighting those mechs are really hard. It's the same kind of concept, if that makes any sense to you guys. Riot armor, yeah. For the water. Okay. Fenrir. So these are like the robotic dogs from Metal Gear Rising. They walk around patrolling the area. These also play the role of attack dogs. If one spots you, it'll howl and alert all other enemies in the area. When aggressive, they start moving much faster. It can shoot at you with the railgun on its back. They can spam this. They can also charge it up to fire a stronger, more accurate shot. But after using the railgun, they have to take a moment to rest, which leaves them vulnerable. And if you get too close while they use the railgun, they can cancel it and jump away. So generally, if you want to avoid that railgun, try to stay close to these guys, even though that is still kind of dangerous. If you're attacking them from the front, they can pull a feint and swerve behind you, then shoot their railgun at your back. They can use their tail to throw knives at you. They can also leap backwards while throwing knives at different angles. After readying up, they can fly at the player with a powerful spinning tackle to ram at the player, and they can do this up to 3 times in a row if they want. They can also leap at the player with a claw swipe. My favorite Smash reveal trailer? I don't know. There were a lot that I really liked. I don't think I really have a favorite, honestly. Alright. And then the last strong Metal Gear enemy are the Mastiffs. These are the gorilla-like androids from Metal Gear Rising. Bulky enemies that walk around patrolling the area. They can also hang on the ceiling and try to ambush the player from above. They also like to beat on their chest like gorillas. They can do a powerful straight punch forward. They can do a hammer punch on the ground with both arms to try to smash the player. They can even do this move after jumping into the air, off a ceiling, or even after wall jumping. They can do a double foot drop kick. If you're behind them, they can turn while swinging their arm for a backhanded attack. They can do an uppercut to launch you into the air, and if they land this, they'll follow it up by jumping after you and hammer punch you with a hammer punch to meteor smash you back to the ground. They do also have a firearm mounted on their arm to shoot at you. And when you see them roaring, they'll attempt to run at you for a grab. If they grab you from the front, they'll pin you to the ground and start punching you in the face until you can escape. If they grab you from behind, they'll chokehold you and keep squeezing until you escape. But if they miss, they are left vulnerable. So Mastiffs probably are one of the more dangerous enemies in general. Like not like obviously in the Metal Gear world, but also just in general. Like it's probably up there like with like the Darkonauts and such, where it's an enemy with a lot of attacks, but it counts as a strong enemy and not a mini-boss. Which, speaking of which, mini-bosses. Have I ever thought about doing a Pokemon Unite moveset for a cute Pokemon like Mincino? Only if they get enough requests. Alright, for the first mini-boss, Geckos. They walk around the area, never letting the player out of its sight. If If its kick attacks are shielded, it's likely to jump back. For its attacks, it can wind up its foot to try to stab kick at the player. They can do a spinning sweep kick, and it may even sweep kick back into the other direction, like to follow it up. It can stomp on the player, smashing its foot into the ground, but if this misses, its foot will get stuck, which can leave it vulnerable for a bit. It can ready itself like a bull and then start charging forward to try to ram the player. It can fire at the player with a mounted machine gun. They can fire missiles at the player that explode on contact. They can shoot a cord at the player and try to catch them. If it does catch, you'll have a small window to escape before if you mash the buttons. But if you don't escape, it'll swing you around and slam you into the ground, Hulk style. And then it'll grab you with its leg and smash you into the ground. And geckos can also call in dwarf geckos for backup. For the other mini boss in the Metal Gear world, it's the Canard Rotor Wing. So these are unmanned helicopters. Yeah, it's a large helicopter that flies in the air. Touching the copter blades can hurt the player. If you do enough damage, it may stagger and come to the ground for a bit. When it's defeated, it falls to the ground and explodes, which can hurt your characters. For its attacks, it doesn't have that many. It moves around, shooting at the player with machine guns. Fires a fast-moving missile that explodes on contact. It can fire missiles that fly straight. It can fire them that slightly home in on the player, or it can spin in the air while firing missiles all over the place. It does have a sniper gun to shoot at you with high accuracy shots, and this also has a red infrared laser to know so that way you'll know when it's doing it. It can swoop down and try to ram the player. This is redundant. Let me just... Yeah, touching the blades hurt. And whenever you see it turning in the air, just the action of it turning can also hurt you. How do mini bosses work exactly? Is it like the multi-Yoshi fight in Melee's? Yeah, kind of think like that. Like when you reach like a certain spot in the level, occasionally like the mini boss will appear and you'll be stuck in that spot until you beat the mini boss. So it's also very much like Kirby mini bosses. Like imagine in Kirby games, like whenever you come across a mini boss, you're stuck in that area where the in the mini boss's like arena until you beat them. So it's the same kind of principle. As for the world boss of Metal Gear, it is Metal Gear Rex. So definitely the more iconic of the Metal Gear robots. It was going to be either this or Ray, but more people seem to have wanted Rex, so we're doing Rex. A large enemy that mostly remains stationary, but it can walk forward or backward. But it can walk forward or backward occasionally, and mainly moves through its attacks. Are the What If They Were in Smash videos done? Nope, they are not done. They are just on hiatus while my hand heals. My hand is currently injured, so I cannot draw. As soon as my hand heals, I will resume the What If They Were in Smash moveset videos. Do not worry about that. Let's see. Metal Gear Rex takes reduced damage from all attacks. So, what happened to my hand? It's tendinitis. Like, I overused it. Probably from too much drawing. Excuse me. Yeah, because according to Otacon, he implemented Metal Gear Rex with this really, really tough armor. So in general, it's really hard to deal damage to. You can, however, attack the round ray dome on Rex's left arm. Attacking it enough will cause it to malfunction and blind Rex's sensors, changing its attack patterns for a bit until the ray dome starts working again. This also forces the pilot seat to open. Attacking into that location while it's open deals extra damage, and while it's open, it's more likely to use melee attacks over ranged moves. So as for Rex's attacks, it will try to sideways kick toward the player. It can put its head down, then quickly raise it up to try to catapult the player into the air. It can try to stomp the player with one of its feet, and if it does stomp you, it drags its foot back until with the player still under it. So it literally does like when SpongeBob stepped on Plankton. Oh, something's on my foot. Ah! Like that kind of deal. It can shoot Gatling gun rounds at the player. It can fire anti-tank missiles that rain down around the player's location. The missiles explode on impact. It can shoot a few at once that follow the player for a bit from its knees, or it can shoot a bunch that rains randomly all over from its back. So it can either shoot them from its back, or it can shoot missiles from its knees. It can fire a laser cannon from under the cockpit across the ground from close to far or far to close. It can roar, which stuns the player if they're too close. It can charge across the screen with a tackle to try to ram the player. It can jump around to try to crush the player under it. Every time it jumps, it wildly fires its laser below itself until it lands, and it can jump up to 2 times in a row. It can bite the player, and if this lands, it'll slam the player back into the ground. So Rex is kind of brutal. Like, it'll snap at you, and then just pop, and then just, volleyball spike you if it wants. It can also jump into the background and aim its railgun at the stage. After it charges up, it fires a highly explosive shot at the player's location, then returns to the stage. The resulting explosion covers a lot of area, and this attack will automatically KO the player if it lands. But this attack can be taken out of commission permanently by dealing enough damage to the ray gun specifically to destroy it. So it's a very, very deadly attack, but you do have a way to get around it if you need to. So that's the Metal Gear world. What do you guys think of it? Or at least the Metal Gear enemies specifically. I still gotta actually flesh out the world itself, but the enemies specifically. Like, what do you guys think? What did you miss? I just got done talking about all of the Metal Gear enemies for the adventure mode. Alrighty then. Let's go ahead and move on to the next world then. The Sonic the Hedgehog world. So, for the Sonic world... so these are all bad nicks for the most part. For the weak enemies, we got Motobugs. They move forward constantly. They will turn around at walls and ledges. When aggressive, they'll speed up and try to ram at the player. And if you jump over them while they charge, they will break and look around looking confused. So you can disorient the Motobugs just by jumping over them. Buzz Bombers. They fly forward in the air in a fixed horizontal pattern, but they will turn if they ever reach a wall. Some will fly in a stationary spot. When aggressive, they'll stop and shoot at the player with an energy shot from their stinger, and some will just charge at the player to try to ram them. Next we have Orbinaut Unidasu. They hover forward very slowly. They can be either close to the ground or high in the air. They will turn at walls. They have 4 spiked balls that orbit the Orbinaut longitudinally. Just touching a spike ball will deal damage. When aggressive, they get mad and shoot their spike balls forward one at a time. After all of the spike balls are shot, the Orbinaut is left vulnerable. And they do have a variant in the form of the Orbinaut Uni. These are the green Orbinauts. They do not get aggressive or shoot their spike balls, so they do behave more like obstacles, but they can be destroyed by projectiles or well-disjointed attacks. Next are Burrobots. They hide underground and will pop out once the player gets close, and this can hurt the player if they were above the Burrobot's location. Once above ground, they move forward constantly. They'll turn at walls, but they will turn at ledges, but they can climb up walls. They can burrow back underground to try another ambush or to just change locations. And when aggressive, they'll charge at the player with their drill, which will drag the player along if they get hit by it. Next are Caterkillers. They slowly crawl forward. They will turn at walls and ledges. Caterkillers do not get aggressive, but you must attack their head to defeat them. Attacking another part of their body will deal damage and cause the will hurt you specifically if you attack a different part of their body. And it also causes Caterkiller to fall apart, leading to its segments to bounce around the area and become more dangerous. Been loving these live streams lately, but did you ever say when I'm going back to movesets? When my hand heals. As soon as my hand heals, that's when I'll go back to movesets. Hi there, Lucas. And then for the last week enemy, we have egg pawns. They walk around patrolling the area, so they're not as antiquated. When aggressive, they'll run at the player and try to tackle them. They can also try to punch the player. And egg pawns have a number of variants. There are egg gun pawns, which typically remain stationary to rapid fire shoot at the player. Egg spear pawns, which are very much like the normal ones, but they have spears, so when they charge at you, they have more disjoint. Egg bazooka pawns, which typically remain stationary and shoot at the player with exploding shots. Or there are smooth shield egg pawns, which hold shield forward that absorb attacks. The shield can be destroyed when it takes enough damage, turning the shield pawn into a normal egg pawn. Alrighty. Now for the strong enemies, first we have slicers. They sit in a stationary spot, they usually hang out on ledges, and they can also hang on ceilings. When aggressive, they'll throw their claws at the player. The claws will home in on the player for a little bit, and they can grow their claws back soon after. But sometimes, on a rare occasion, instead of growing the claws back, they'll start flashing red and will self-destruct soon after. But they can be destroyed before they self-destruct. Then there are shell crackers. They crab walk around patrolling the area. They can turn around, and they can turn around to change the location of their big claw. They always try to keep their big claw pointed at the player. When aggressive, they'll extend their big claw at the player and try to punch them, then retract it back, and just touching the big claw at all deals damage, because if I recall correctly, it's covered in spikes. Then we have a Rhinobot. They move forward, they turn at walls and ledges. When aggressive, they try to run the player down and ram them. It's pretty fast and will U-turn after the player if they jump over it. So Rhinobots are kind of like a much stronger version of the Motobugs. What about Grounder? That's just Burrowbot. It's kind of the same thing. Then we have Egg Robo. Usually appear from the background to try to ambush the player. They fly around in the air, patrolling the area. They generally remain stationary, but a few will try to keep their distance from the player while also attacking them. When aggressive, they can fire shots from their guns toward the player, and they may also fire a beam from their gun that travels horizontally. And the Egg Robo can move up or down while firing said beam. How's my wrists? I don't know right now, honestly. Because it still hurts to move my thumb too much. Alrighty, now for the mini-bosses. And I did change the mini-bosses around a little bit from beforehand. First mini-boss is the Egg Wrecker. So this is the wrecking, like the very first boss you ever face in Sonic. It's being piloted by an Egg Robo. It moves back and forth at the top of the screen, swinging a wrecking ball from side to side that below it as it moves, and it can occasionally stop. When its health goes below 2/3, it gets angry, which will start the real fight. Because the first third of the fight is literally just like how it was in Sonic 1, where all it does is kind of just passively just float around the top of the screen, swinging that wrecking ball. Once it goes below 2/3 of the fight, then it starts fighting back properly. It'll move faster and start using actual attacks. If it uses any attack that involves it discarding the wrecking ball, a different type of wrecking ball may replace it instead. Which one can be a spike ball, which deals more damage and knockback and is slightly bigger. A spinning buzzsaw, the same that we saw in Sonic Forces, which deals more damage and attacks where it hits the ground cause it to move forward. So if there's ever a point where like it'll slam into the ground, the spinning buzzsaw will cause it to kind of move forward a little bit, so it can chase you too if you're not careful. Or just a bomb, where impact with anything will cause it to explode, immediately forcing it to replace it with a new one. For the attacks the wrecking ball can do, just touching the wrecking ball as it's being swung deals damage. When it reaches that angry state, it can do a front flip to swing the wrecking ball around, then slamming it into the ground. Oh, thank you so much, Peppus. Hey, it feels like it's been years since I've been able to get out of work early enough to catch a stream. How's my hand doing? I still need to go see a hand doctor. I brought this up earlier. My doctor was going to refer me to a hand doctor specialist to figure out exactly what's wrong with my hand, but I never got that call back. So I'm gonna have to probably just find one on my own. So probably next week I'll start doing some research to see if I can get an appointment with a hand doctor that will actually accept my health insurance, and we'll go from there. All right, let's see. It can do a backflip to sling the wrecking ball high into the air, causing it to fall back down and crash into the stage. And a robot can spawn, and the robot can spawn a new wrecking ball before the thrown one lands. It can move to the center of the screen and start spinning, causing the wrecking ball to be swung around. It can move left and right while spinning, and when it finishes, the wrecking ball will fly off, prompting it to get a new one. It can follow the player's location, then try to drop the wrecking ball straight down, try to crush the player underneath it. And it can fly lower and drag the wrecking ball across the ground, then fling it off at the end of the charge. The egg carrier as a mini boss? I don't know about that. The egg carrier sounds like a stage, or at least like a world, not a boss. That carrier's that's a big boy. All right. Next mini boss is the Big Arm. Now, originally I had this listed as Mecha Sonic, but then I had a thought. After I thought of the idea of some worlds having multiple world bosses, where it has a default world boss and then a much more difficult one that can appear, I'm thinking Metal Sonic might actually fit better as an alternative world boss, because Metal Sonic is pretty big and important. So, that's the way I see it. So, I haven't fully decided what I want to do with Metal Sonic just yet. It can probably just turn into like a giant form, like Metal Overlord, or one of the ones that we see in like Mania or Chaotix or whatever. But that's where my head's going right now with Metal Sonic. But the other mini boss I went ahead and decided to go for was Big Arm, which was the that was the mech that you fight at the end of Sonic 3, and it also made a reappearance again in Sonic Generations. So for the Big Arm, it's, again, being piloted by an egg robo. It flies around the area, but also likes to disappear off-screen a lot of the time. The top of the mech is covered in spikes, so just touching that area will deal damage. When at half health, it gets angry, and it reveals spikes on its forearms, making attacking the arms now much more dangerous. For its attacks, after some wind-up, it'll punch the ground, trying to aim for the player. It can do a palm thrust attack, which deals minimal damage, but pushes the player away if it hits. It can do a horizontal backhanded smack. It can shoot energy missiles from its fingertips. After flying off screen, it can charge at the player and try to grab them. If it grabs the player, it'll suplex them into the stage, but when it's angry, it'll squeeze you first, then just spike you into the stage. And it can move at ground level and It can move to the ground level and start charging at the player head first, trying to impale you with the spikes on its head. And it can turn during this once it reaches the edge of the arena. What about Mecha Sonic? I just brought that up earlier, how Mecha Sonic was the original idea that we had for the other mini boss, but I think just one Metal Sonic is fine. Now the world boss. The Death Egg Robot, the most iconic super badnik that Eggman ever pilots. He's used it probably the most out of all of his others. The Death Egg Robot. It takes large struts, moving forward and backward, so being too close to its feet when it steps will deal damage. It always tries to face the player, but it can't turn while using certain attacks. When below a third of its health, Eggman gets angry and the robot begins to emit static electricity all over its body, causing it to move faster, and just touching its body while it emits electricity hurts. And when the electricity turns off, the Death Egg Robot will malfunction until it turns back on. While it's turned off, it's left vulnerable. For its attacks, or you can have the Gigantic or other Titans as the final boss for Sonic Frontiers. No, nope. There is no negotiation in this one. It's the Death Egg Robot. It's not going to be anything else. Anything else is literally just asinine. All right. As for the Death Egg Robot's attacks, It can try to punch the player with one of its claws if they're directly in front of it. It can also punch in the air or smash the ground. It can shoot out its extending spinning claws at the player, then retract them back afterward. It can also do this once more. It can do this only once or twice in a row with each arm. It can launch Eggman-shaped mines from its jetpack from its jetpack that explode after a set time. It can throw these either in front or behind itself. It can fly into the air off-screen, causing a crosshairs to appear that follows the player, and the Death Egg Robot will then crash down into the crosshairs location soon afterward. While it's angry, though, crashing into the ground causes a shockwave of electricity that travels across the ground in both directions. A small turret can appear on the top of its head that shoots energy projectiles at the player. While Eggman's angry, it can do a wide skipping struts across the screen, trying to stomp or ram the player. It can do this either going forward or backward. While it's angry, it can also shoot a screen-wide laser beam from its eyes that move longitudinally from low to high. And after its health is completely depleted, so once you beat it, it does a very Eggman thing and tries one last desperation attack. It'll fly off screen and into the air, then crash down into the player's location with a dropping punch. This destroys that part of the arena where the Death Egg Robot lands, and it falls down into the pit it creates, which will end the fight. But if the player is hit by this, they will more than likely lose a stock. So, while it won't necessarily end, it won't cause the game over if you have more than one stock. If that was your last stock and you get hit by that, then that will be a game over, and that'll suck. But that's just Eggman for you. That's what he does. He's done that often. Eggman is a very desperate man. Alrighty, so that's the Sonic World enemies. What do you guys think? I know someone brought up crab meat earlier, but I don't feel I need to have crab meat if I already have Shell Shocker. I think some of the members of the Deadly Six work as mini-bosses? No. That's all I'm saying on that. I really do not like the Deadly Six. They are such non-characters. Sorry, if you like them, that's fine, but I don't like them. Sorry. Alrighty, let's go ahead and move on. I got an idea. When you defeat the Death Egg Robot, Eggman will get out of the Death Egg and run. Outrun Sonic while Sonic chases behind him. That won't really work because of how this is. Because when he tries that last desperation attack, he falls into the pit. So now, I did mention before, so the Death Egg Robot is the default world boss. I do want to have a Metal Sonic alternative boss for if you meet the conditions. I haven't built it yet, so that's gonna be something I do at a later point. The Deadly Six are the Koopa Links, but with no charisma. Yeah, kinda. Alright, next up, the Pikmin world. And now that I've played and beaten Pikmin 4, this made things a lot easier to do. Alright, so here's the Pikmin world. Weak enemies. Dwarf Bulborbs. They walk around patrolling the area. When aggressive, they'll walk toward the player and try to bite them. They can shake their body to knock the player away. Some may be found hanging out with normal Bulborbs, but Dwarf Bulborbs take extra damage if attacked from above. They also have two variants. There are Dwarf Orange Bulborbs, which are slightly stronger than the normal ones, and these usually hang out around Orange Bulborbs. Then there's also the much rarer Dwarf Bulbear. Slightly stronger, faster, and way more aggressive than the Dwarf Orange Bulborb, but they usually hang out with the Spotty Bulbears, following them around, so expect those guys later. Fiery Blowhogs. They walk around patrolling the area. When aggressive, they breathe in, then shoot a stream of fire forward. If the player is too close, they'll try doing a tossing tackle forward, which will launch the player forward, even if they were behind it. Excuse me. And they do have a variant in the form of the watery blowhog, which shoots these shoot water, but it deals no damage and pushes the player away. So their only means of being able to hurt you is a tackle. Next is the swooping snitch bug. They fly around patrolling the area. When aggressive, they'll swoop down at the player and try to grab them. If they grab you, they'll carry your character for a bit, usually flying to a new spot, then throws you at the ground and buries you. You can escape, though, while it carries you, and if they take enough damage while flying, they'll get staggered and fall to the ground for a bit, which leaves them vulnerable, but they will fly back up if left alone. Then there are skitter leaves. Fun fact, Flyery Bullhog's scientific name is the Sustracona. I saw that and I was like, dang it, was it always like that? And I hate it. Anyway, skitter leaves. They start off camouflaged, looking like a leaf on the ground, and only move when the player gets close. They are very quick, skittering around the ground all over the place, but they are harmless. All they do is try to run away, though they can do a small little flip which pushes you away, and they're only found above ground. So I actually should mention, so the Pikmin world, I figure, could be kind of could be one that where you shift between, you start above ground, and at some point you move below ground. Should also mention, I'm probably going to incorporate the nighttime, a nighttime thing as well, where if it turns night while you're traveling above ground, the enemies can get aggressive. Why did it stop? Why'd you stop? There you go. If you're above a pit, wait, what if you're above a pit when they try to bury you? Then you just fall, and you better hope you're quick at recovering. So you better hope the snitch bugs don't do that. All right, shearwigs. When the player gets close, they dig up from the ground and start flying around in the air. When aggressive, they'll swoop. Oh wait, forgot to mention. The skitter leaves do have a variant. The desiccated skitter leaves. These are aggressive versions who can hurt the player. They lose the pushing flip attack, but gain an attack where they reach their claws forward and try to pull the player in to bite them. These can be found either above or below ground. Hey, happy birthday, Ray! Happy birth. Alright, so the shearwig. Yeah, so when aggressive, they'll swoop into the character and try to bite them. Taking any damage at all will stagger the shearwig and knock them to the ground, which leaves them vulnerable. They tend to appear in swarms and try to overwhelm the player, and they can dig back into the ground if the player strays too far away from them. Gonna eat sushi? Yum. Share. And for the last week enemy, this was an enemy, admittedly, that kind of filled my bias. The Downy Snagret. This is a brand new enemy introduced in Pikmin 4, but when I saw it, I fell in love with it immediately and was like, I'm having this, whether anyone likes it or not. I want a Downy Snagret pet. It looks so adorable. I know what they grow up to be, but the babies are really cute. Downy Snagret walks around aimlessly. When aggressive, they bite and peck at the player. They can shake their body to also knock the player away, and they're also likely to appear out of eggs. So eggs are actually a world element, where sometimes you'll just find eggs laying around, and when you break them open, they can reveal either items or enemies, like Downy Snagrets. For strong enemies, Bulborbs. You gotta have Bulborbs in your Pikmin. Large enemies that are normally first found asleep. If they wake up, they become aggressive. They'll stomp towards the player and will turn around if the player gets behind them. After a bit, it may get agitated and start moving faster. While right in front of a Bulborb, it'll attempt to bite the player. If they miss, they trip over, though. They may also bite repeatedly up to 3 times, and if they do bite 3 times, they will trip over even if they hit you. But this trip can hurt the player if they're in the Bulborb's way. If the player is behind the Bulborb, it may also try to back jump into the player to sit on them. If you're too close to it, it may just try to shake its body around to knock you away. If you attack the Bulborb's eye stalk, it may reel back in pain to kind of stun it for a bit. They cannot be grabbed, they're too big, and they are immune to flinching from weaker attacks. So, and also the aforementioned variants. They have orange Bulborbs, which are slightly stronger than the normal ones, and they're also much more likely to wake up if you within their well, not more likely. They will always wake up when you get into aggro range. These are very aggressive Bulborbs, but not as aggressive as the spotty ones. The spotty Bulbears are slightly stronger, faster, and way more aggressive than the orange Bulborbs. And they don't sleep; they just walk around, and they're completely immune to flinching. So the spotty Bulbears are jerks. Shouldn't Bulbears take extra damage from their backs since that's their weak point? I don't think that's really their weak point per se. That's just the safest place. That's just the safest place to hit them. Because I think they'll take the same amount of damage whether you attack their front or their back. I believe that's the case. Why is this stopping every time it finishes the song? Weird. Anyway. Could you keep Bulborbs from waking up by walking slowly? Yeah, just don't make noise. It's the same kind of rules as like the Metal Gear enemies or just in general. Like, there are many enemies that like maybe won't notice you in general. Alright, next up. Yellow Wally Hops. So, this actually confused me, the name, because I've always known them as Wally Wogs, and I'm sure that's what you guys have known them as too. Apparently, I just learned this recently, because I saw in Pikmin 4, they were renamed the Wally Hops. And apparently they were also renamed that in Pikmin 3, unless I'm just forgetting. I just never noticed. Apparently the reason why they were renamed Wally Hops is apparently the word wog is a slur in Europe. And I never knew that. So they went ahead, so yeah, officially they're now called Wally Hops. Is it, how many of you knew that? Like, because I have never once heard of that slur. In which case, so the Wally Hops, they just sit in a stationary spot generally. When aggressive, they'll leap high into the air over the player's location, stop midair, then drop. Players hit by it on the ground will be buried. Players hit by it in the air will be meteor smashed. But when it loses, let me fix this. When it loses aggro, though, it'll hop back to its original spot. They were called that in Pikmin 3 until Deluxe. Okay, so that's why I never realized it. Okay, gotcha. Anyway, let's see. It can shake its body to knock the player away if they get too close. They're only found above ground, but they do have a variant in the form of the normal Wally Hop, so the white ones. How's my wrist? Any updates? I still need to go see a hand doctor. Let's see. The white ones have a slightly shorter head, so they have a slightly smaller hitbox, and the normal Wally Hops are only found in caves. Next are the puffy blowhogs. So these slowly float around in the air aimlessly. When aggressive, they'll inhale, then blow a large gust of air forward. This deals no damage, but it is a strong wind box to push everything away. They can't shake their bodies to knock players away if they're too close. If they take damage, enough damage, they'll stagger and fall to the ground, leaving them vulnerable. But eventually, they'll inflate their bodies to lift themselves back into the air, and this inflation can knock players away if they're too close. Then we have the armored cannon larva. It's called larvae, actually. No, I think that's right, actually. I forget. Anyway, stationary enemies that poke out from underground when the player gets too close. It coming out of the ground can launch players into the air if they were standing over it. When aggressive, they inhale, then spit a rock that constantly rolls forward until it hits a wall or a large enemy. If it hits the player, it rolls over them and buries them. And if the player was in the air when they're hit by it, it just launches them away. Larvae is plural of larva. Thank you. Okay. That's why I was confused. They can also thrust their head forward to hit the player if they're too close, and they can burrow back underground, but they will never move from their spot. And then we do have a bunch of obstacle enemies here. First is the honey wisp. can appear randomly and slowly floats in the air. When attacked, it'll drop an egg and then disappear. The water wraith, at certain points in the level, they'll drop down from high up. They only appear in the underground areas. It constantly rolls forward almost aimlessly. Getting run over by it deals a lot of damage and buries the player. It may occasionally lift its front wheel up and try to smash it into the ground, which can also bury the player. Then there's the Smoky Prog. I was terrified to see this come back in Pikmin 4. When I didn't even realize it was there. I saw the egg and I was like, oh, that's neat. I wonder what that is. When it hatched, I actively just screamed, oh no! I actively became terrified when I saw the Smoky Prog come back. Smoky Prog is only found at night. It starts as a large egg that hatches into the Smoky Prog. If you are fast enough, though, you can destroy the egg first, which prevents the Smoky Prog from hatching, and it drops a lot of items instead. It slowly crawls around, actively chasing the player. It emits a red gas that will automatically KO the player if they touch it. It can also spit a slow-moving red orb that falls onto the ground, then spreads out as a ring when it hits the ground, which also automatically KOs the player. And it can also do an ear-splitting scream, which stuns the player in place. Run for your life when you see this guy. Just run. I know you can technically fight them, but not in this case. Run for your life. Dangerous. But then we have the iridescent flint beetle. A much rarer enemy. When discovered, they quickly crawl across the ground, trying to actively avoid the player. When attacked, they can drop items. If attacked enough, they may fall on their back, making them vulnerable to more attacks. After taking a certain amount of damage, or when enough time passes, they will just burrow away. And they do have a single, very rare variant called the iridescent glint beetle. A golden variant that you will probably very hardly see. It's random when they show up. They drop much rarer items in attack, and they are much more likely to burrow away. You said the Dark Lord and the thumbnail and got excited? Well, don't you worry. I hope to get to the Mii world later on. So we will definitely talk about Miitopia stuff as we go. So don't you worry. Alright. Mini bosses. First is the Burrowing Snagret. Appears from underground, beak first, stabbing up. And it stays in that spot while above ground, so it can't move. But it will only move spots when it burrows back under, then digs up into a new spot. If the player is too far from it, it'll burrow back down and try to get closer. Its body takes no damage from attacks. You must attack the head. As it loses health, the feathers on its head will slowly fall off. That's how you know, aside from the big health bar it's probably going to have, that's how you also know that it's getting weaker as the feathers come off. For its attacks, it just coming up from underground deals damage to the player if they were too close from its emerging spot. It can rapidly peck into the player's direction. After reeling back, it can lunge its head toward the player and try to eat them. If it catches you, it swallows you whole, causing constant damage, but will soon spit you back up and will launch you. But if your damage is too high after it eats you, you won't be spit back up. You'll just be automatically KO'd. So don't get hit by that. If it misses, though, its beak hits the ground, it'll get stuck for a bit, which does leave it vulnerable. It may shake its head around if the player is too close for too long to get them away, and it can also cough up eggs that break once they hit the ground. Items can't come out of the eggs, but there's a much higher chance that downy snagrets will come out instead. So that's probably not how the burrowing snagrets give birth, but I don't care. So anyway, second mini boss, Baldy Longlegs. So this was something I thought of doing off screen. I don't think we actually decided on a second mini boss yet because I wanted to wait for Pikmin 4 to come out. So I think I went ahead and just added on Baldy Longlegs, because every single Pikmin game has like that giant four-legged like spider with the the ping pong whatever. No, the opening prize thing for its body or whatever. Though off topic real quick, who else here loved Groovy Longlegs when you played Pikmin 4? Groovy Longlegs is probably one of my new favorite bosses in Pikmin. That boss was amazing. Does Baldy sort of Shaggy Longlegs? No, it doesn't. It probably could also just be Beady Longlegs, but Baldy Longlegs kind of is just what's been around recently, so. Alright, Baldy Longlegs. A very large mini-boss that drops in from high up. It constantly takes steps, though it may stop to rest on and lower its head on a very rare occasion. Its body will always be over the arena, but its legs may rotate. Each leg segment sometimes being on the stage and sometimes off depending on its position. Its legs cannot be passed through. So to get to its body, you'll either have to wait for the body to rotate and for the legs to get out of the way, or you'll have to quickly move under its foot as it lifts it up. Attacking the leg does next to no damage, so it does hurt it, but it doesn't do anything. Barely. Attacking the head deals normal damage. It can get angry on occasion and start to move around a little faster. At low health, the legs start to struggle and move slower, so the fight actually becomes easier as it progresses, though it will ignore this whenever it gets angry as it gets bursts of adrenaline. When its health is depleted, its body opens up to reveal goodies. For its attacks, it doesn't have too many. When it first enters the arena by falling from the ceiling, that first stomp can hurt and bury the player if they were directly under one of its feet. It takes large struts with each leg, moving one leg at a time. Each step stomps the ground, which deals damage and buries the player underneath. It can lift two of its legs, then slam them into the ground. This can also bury the player if it steps on them, and this also causes debris to spread all around its stomps. The debris deals chip damage. It can do a bunch of quick stomps, which cause quakes all around its feet that launch the player up. The player can also once again get buried under its feet and won't be freed until the final stomp of that foot. And this also causes debris to fall from the ceiling. And it can shake its body and legs, which knock the player away and can force the player outside of its legs. Now for the world boss of Pikmin, I've decided on the Sovereign Ball Blacks. So this was an enemy that was technically introduced in Pikmin 4. Really, it's just the Emperor Ball Blacks. But the Sovereign one's like a much bigger one, because the Sovereign one's really closer to the one that we see in Pikmin 1 at the end of the game. But that was also originally just called the Emperor Ball Blacks. But ever since then, the Emperor Ball Blacks have kind of gotten smaller, so they brought back the super big one and gave it a new name called the Sovereign Ball Blacks. The Sovereign Ball Blacks is a massive enemy that actively chases the player. You can only deal damage to it by attacking its head. Attacking anywhere else on its body does nothing. At half health, it will get angry, prompting it to hit harder and use new attacks. Have we done arms yet? We are nowhere close to arms yet. For its attacks, it does have quite a few. It can whip its tongue out and wave it side to side. If the player is hit by this, they'll be pulled into its mouth, chewed on, then spat back out. But if the player is over 100% of damage when eaten, they will get swallowed and are automatically KO'd, so avoid the tongue. But if you can get an explosive item to touch its tongue during this, it will be swallowed and explode inside the Sovereign Ball Blacks, dealing some damage and staggering it for a bit, leaving it vulnerable. It can do a massive bite attack forward. It can do a short hop stomp. It can hop in place or hop from side to side. Players who touch its body during this will be knocked away. Players who are under it when it stomps will be buried. This also causes debris to fly around its feet, which can deal chip damage to the player. If you're behind it, for whatever reason, you should never be behind it because you can't do any damage from there. it may try to fall back onto you to crush you. It can burrow itself underground, causing different kinds of Bulborb enemies to come out. They must be dealt with before Sovereign Bulblacks will come back. And when it does come back up, you'll see dirt start to push up from where it's going to emerge, so get out of the way or you'll be launched into the air when it comes up. When it's angry, it can do a massive roar that stuns you while also pushing you away. And while it's angry, it can do a high jump into the air, going off screen, then crash down. You'll know where it's about to land based on the drop shadow. Players who are under the stomp will be buried or meteor smashed, and this also causes debris to fall from the ceiling. Can Link throw bombs in its mouth, treating it like a Dodongo? Yeah, actually, so, yeah, you're right. Link actually would have an innate... So, here's kind of the interesting thing about all these mini-bosses, or all these bosses in general, the enemies overall of this adventure mode. There are very clearly going to be some characters that will have an innate advantage, like, on some enemies more than others. But there's just such a wide diversity of these monsters and enemies and whatnot, that every single fighter in Smash would each kind of have advantages and disadvantages against some. So, yeah, Link would technically have an innate advantage against the Sovereign Bulblacks, because Link has natural access to explosives. Alrighty, next world. The Rob world. And for this, I'm combining it also with Power Glove and Virtual Boy. So this world is more so innately about Nintendo accessories. Things like that. So the non-Zapper Nintendo accessories, if that makes any sense. Because the Zapper games we're gonna save for Duck Hunt when we get to there. Alright. The weak enemies of the Rob world. Rob sentries. So these are from Subspace. They not really walk. They hover around, kinda. They move around, whatever. Captain N? What? What? What about Captain N? Let's see. When aggressive, they'll swing one of their arms at you. They have thrusters to let them take to the air and hover. While using their thruster, they can release exhaust forward, dealing damage in front of them, also pushing them back, and they can pick up and use items. And they have a variant in the form of the Rob Blaster. They're usually stationary, but can move around to patrol. When aggressive, they fire beams from their eyes at the player. They can also shoot at the player while airborne, and they can charge up their beams to make them more powerful. Will the world have Captain N? No. No, it will not. Smick from Gyromite. Slow-moving enemies constantly walk around forward, will turn if they bump into walls or ledges. They can climb ropes or ladders. When aggressive, they'll try to bite at the player. If they come across an item on the ground, they eat it. Flipper from Stack Up. They move by hopping, generally pacifists, but being in their way as they hop will deal damage. The Hopping Alien from the game Super Glove Balls. This was a game that was designed with the Power Glove in mind. Only moves by hopping around. They jump pretty high. When aggressive, they try to body check the player. They may also try to jump onto the player with a stomp. And they have a variant in the form of the Orange Aliens, which jump even higher and are slightly more aggressive. Crawling Snizzards from Super Glove Ball. Small snake enemies that crawl along the ground. They can crawl up short cliffs and ledges. When aggressive, they try to bite the player. Kamikaze Barnacles fly around erratically. When aggressive, they fly toward the player, attempting to explode on them. Strong enemies. Rob Launcher. So these were the green Robs from Subspace. They don't really walk. They just move. They kind of just, they kind of just scoot, as chat says. Stay hydrated. Spike from Stack Up. Slow-moving floating enemies. Their bodies are covered in spikes, so just touching them deals damage. The spikes constantly retract and poke out of its body, so if you can time your hits and hurt it without so you can time your hits to hurt it without taking damage, and when aggressive, they actively chase the player. The free roaming snizzard pokes its head out. It usually pokes its head out of holes or bottomless pits. It'll attempt to bite nearby players who get close to the hole. When at low health, they'll bite you and then try to pull you into the hole, which is an automatic KO. Then stone sharks float around in the air aimlessly. When aggressive, they actively chase the player and try to bite them. If they bite you, they latch on and deal constant damage until they're shaken off. So then obstacle enemies, we have alien stars. They fly across the screen horizontally, and just touching them deals damage. I forgot to talk about Spike? No, I didn't. I talked about Spike. Alright. Mini-boss. So I'm curious. Harry from Telero Boxer. How many of you knows what that is? This is a game from the Virtual Boy. Yeah, a game aptly called Telero Boxer. I forget if this was kind of a precursor to Punch-Out. I forget if it came out before or after Punch-Out. It's kind of like a Punch-Out game in that regard. So Harry normally is the robot you control as the player character that you control. I'm turning it into a mini boss though, because here's actually the premise of this world. So it takes place in Professor Hector's laboratory. Professor Hector is the scientist who created Rob. Professor Hector's lab is being overrun by aliens and are hijacking all of his robots. You need to stop them. That's the premise of this world. So Harry is a mini-boss because for some reason or another, he's in the lab and he was hijacked. So you gotta fight Harry. He's a large boxing robot. It generally tries to stay close to the player. It takes reduced damage from all attacks, but its head takes extra damage. It's pretty good at moving out of the way of attacks, so the best time to attack it is during or right after it attacks, and it can't hold up its fists to guard your attacks. For Harry's attacks, it can throw a variety of punches, either individually or together in combos, like straight punches, hooks, uppercuts, or body blows. It can punch the ground, which will bury the player if it hits. If you see its fists start to glow, it's charging up for one of its machine gun attacks, where it throws a flurry of punches. It can use any of these four punch types in these flurries, rapidly swinging both fists over and over. If you deal enough damage to it while it charges, it'll stagger and fall to its knees, leaving it vulnerable. Will this mini-boss be in black or red in its full color? No, Harry has an official colors. Because actually, fun fact, Harry actually is a spirit in Smash Ultimate. Like, it actually is in Smash Ultimate. If it blocks 3 attacks in a row, it'll counterattack you with a strong uppercut, and it can jump and land with an elbow drop. The other mini-boss is going to be the Iron Lion from Super Glove Ball. So the Iron Lion actually was a boss in Super Glove Ball. So it's literally just a robotic... It's a robotic lion. It's a fast-moving robot. It can do a huge jump around the arena. If a projectile is shot at it from the front, it'll catch it with its tail and throw it back. So be careful with using projectiles against this guy. For its attacks, it has a claw combo attack. It can do a quick rocket field charge across the screen. Should point that out. A laser shot from its tail. It can shoot the laser either in a straight direction, or it can shoot the laser vertically from high to low. It can whip its tail around while shooting many laser shots that scatter all over the place. It can jump high into the air and try to pounce the player. If it pounces you, you'll be pinned to the ground, and it'll start biting at you, then knock you away with a claw. But you can't escape before it knocks you away. It can spray exhaust flames from its mouth, which paralyzes the player. and it can do a powerful roar, which makes the player dizzy. But when it does this, it also calls in kamikaze barnacles, so watch out for that. Alright, the world boss, Gallium. So, you guys may remember this. I brought this up during a previous stream. Gallium, yeah, that was the giant robot that was introduced in Subspace Emissary. But I remember reading somewhere that Gallium apparently was a part of the Rob army. Gallium wasn't a part of Taboo's army, it was a part of Rob's army. I forgot the power glove? No, I didn't. I made it an item. Right here. So Gallium. I'm sure you guys are pretty familiar with Gallium, right? Like, if you played Brawl or Ultimate, you've probably fought Gallium. It's a very similar fight. It's a Nightmare on Elm Street quote. Oh. So Gallium sits in one spot and only moves when using certain attacks. When down to a fourth of his health, he gets angry, which will have him throw a tantrum and stop around, and his attacks move faster. For his attacks, he has his uppercut, his trample, the giant jump, collapse, hammer knuckle, double arm press, double lariat, grab, rush, Russian slam, missile, and shooting. Like, you guys are all pretty familiar with Gallium, right? Like, I literally just pulled this, like, 1-for-1 from Brawl and Ultimate. So, like, if you guys are familiar with Gallium, then I can go ahead and just move on. Alright, we can move on then. Next world. Animal Crossing! Didn't get anywhere with this one yet. I'm probably going to have to turn this one into some kind of gimmick world, or maybe like a rest world or something. Don't know for sure what I'm doing with Animal Crossing just yet, but I will come back to it. So next up, the Mega Man world. So yeah, it takes place in Wily Castle. Enemies. Metor, or Metul, however you say it. Either way. Stationary enemies that will not move from their spot. They hide under their indestructible helmets. They cannot be hurt or KO'd while hiding. When aggressive, they'll poke out of their helmets and fire a shot from their mouth toward the player. They can fire either a single shot or a three bullet spread shot, and it also takes them a bit to fire a shot and hide after firing. So this is when they're vulnerable for damage. While under the helmet, they cannot be grabbed, and they're immune to flinching while under the helmet. And they do have a variant in the form of the Neo Metor. They're able to walk around and change positions, but they're vulnerable while they walk. They tend to walk toward the player, and they turn at walls but not at ledges. So they will walk off ledges. Bunby Heli. So these are like the weird like dome-shaped enemies with the little helicopters on their heads. They fly forward. They will turn at walls. When aggressive, it'll swoop at the player and try to ram them. They can either swoop above or below. Once aggressive, they will actively chase the player. And they do come in two different colors. The blue ones are stronger but slower. The green ones are faster but weaker. Baton. So these are the bat enemies. They start by hanging upside down on the ceiling or under platforms as black orbs. While curled up, they cannot take any damage. When you get close, they uncurl and start chasing the player, and they will try to ram the player. Telly. So these are the cylinder-shaped robots that constantly spin around in the air. They appear from holes in the background or from pipes. They only come out when the player gets close, and they can swarm you if you're not careful, but only a set amount can be on screen at a time. They slowly float in the air, actively chasing the player. They constantly spin, so just touching them hurts. Matasubor, Fan Fiend, or Boofer. Different variations, it's whatever. They sit in one spot and never move. They like to hang out in places with bottomless pits. When you get close, they activate their fan and blow a strong wind that blows you away. You can resist the wind by running toward them, and they are immune to flinching from weaker attacks. Pippi, or swallow egg. They fly in the air straight forward carrying an egg. It never stops, it keeps going until it flies off screen, I should say. Until it flies off screen, or hits a wall and explodes. When they get close to a player, they'll drop the egg. If the egg hits the ground or the player, it breaks open and releases a ton of tiny birds that actively chase the player. The tiny birds deal no flinching damage and minute damage at best. But it can rack up quickly if you don't deal with them. The egg, though, can be destroyed before it hits the ground to stop the hatching. And there are red and yellow variants of these, but they have no differences. Strong enemies. Sniper Joe may try to ambush you. They remain stationary, but can occasionally jump around. They hold shields and follow the player's location. They cannot be damaged or grabbed while they hold the shield. When aggressive, they'll shoot at the player. When they shoot at the player, they put their shields down. They can fire up to 3 shots, and this is the only time when you can damage them. If you're right next to them, though, they can push you away with their shield. So the only way to hurt the Sniper Joes is to attack them while they're attacking you. Change Keymaker. So these are the dudes that, like, they look like pots with arms and legs, and they have fire coming out of their heads. Flaming enemies that stand in one spot. Just touching their head deals damage. They throw change key fireballs at the player from their head. Big Eye. Large enemies that move with large hops. When aggressive, they jump toward the player and try to crush them or ram into them. It can do short hops or tall hops. It will actively chase the player. It takes extra damage when its eyeball is attacked, but they are immune to flinching and cannot be grabbed. They're just too big. Cannons. They sit in stationary spots and will never move. They hide their muzzles in a hatch. While the muzzle is hidden, this enemy is immune to all damage. When the player gets close, the muzzle will come out and fire a large cannonball into the air at an arc that will fall toward the player, and the cannonball will explode on impact. They're also immune to flinching and cannot be grabbed. So you can only deal damage to this guy when the muzzle's out. You have to attack the muzzle. Single obstacle enemy. Gabiol. Gabiol? How do you say this? Gabiol? Anyway, short spinning bots that travel back and forth on the ground. When you step on the same plane as them, they speed up. Just touching them deals damage. And I know these are also enemies that generally you can destroy in Mega Man, but here now, they'll just be an obstacle enemy. Alright, mini bosses. Yellow Devil. Appears in segments, then forms up. It speaks in boomos. Remains stationary and only moves when it uses attacks. When it forms, its eye can appear on a random spot on its body. Yellow Devil takes reduced damage from all attacks. It takes slightly extra damage, though, when attacked in its eyeball. For its attacks, it can split apart and move to the other side of the screen in segments, slowly reforming. Each segment can hurt the player as it flies. While in segments, it cannot take any damage, but occasionally, as it moves to the other side of the screen, the segments may bounce on the ground instead of just floating straight forward. It can fire shots from its eyeball. It can fire one shot at the player, or it may rapid fire shots that fly in different directions. It can fire a laser beam from its eye that moves from close to far or high to low, but this can be interrupted by attacking the eye while it fires the laser. It can try to smash the player by slapping the ground with one of its hands, and if this connects, the player will actually be pulled into its body, then launched out of its body into the ground. It can form cubes from its body that it throws at the player as projectiles. The cubes are slow-moving and bounce around the screen, and they can be destroyed by attacking them. Alright, next mini-boss. The Weapons Archive Robot Master. So, this was the reason why I did that Robot Master form. That voting form. I wanted to find out what were considered the most iconic robot masters from each of the 11 games. So these are my results. So this is a mini-boss gauntlet. You must fight 5 out of the 11 robot masters at random to win. Each robot master has their own patterns, attacks, and weaknesses. The shape and state of the room changes depending on the robot masters you fight. So yeah, originally I was thinking, okay, I want to have it be where you fight 8 in a row, you know, just like how you have to fight the 8 robot masters like in the games. But a part of me was feeling that was too many, and also I wasn't sure which ones to exclude because a lot of these are really iconic. So I got the idea to make it where there's a lot of them that you can potentially fight, but you only fight 5, you know, like per run. And this is actually also cool because what happens if like tomorrow they announce Mega Man 12? Like, this allows me to be able to add more robot masters or take them away and replace them or whatever without actually affecting any of the fight. So the winner of Mega Man 1 was Gutsman. As no duh. Only moves by jumping. It can jump in place or side to side. Each time he lands, he shakes the ground, which will trip Mega Man if he wasn't in the air. Occasionally after will trip the player. Sorry. The player. Occasionally after landing, a block will fall into Gutsman's hand, which he throws at the player. When the block makes impact, it splits into 2 smaller blocks. He takes double damage from explosions. Yeah, this one was a toss-up between Gutsman and Cutman, but Gutsman was pretty far in the lead here. Winner of Mega Man 2, Metal Man. You fight him on a treadmill that he can change direction. Whenever you shoot at him, he jumps and throws whenever you attack him, he jumps and throws metal blades into your direction. His jump height can vary. He can throw up to 3 metal blades, and he can eventually attack, but he will eventually attack on his own if you wait too long. He takes double damage from slashing attacks and quadruple damage from slashing projectiles. The winner of Mega Man 3, Snake Man. He constantly walks forward, turning to chase the player and jumping over elevations. He'll occasionally jump high into the air and fire 2 search snakes. The snakes will fall straight down, then when they hit the floor, will constantly travel forward for a limited time, then explode when time runs out. They explode sooner if they hit the player. The search snakes can crawl on walls and ceilings. He takes double damage from slashing attacks and 1.5 times normal damage from melee attacks. I voted for Shadow Man. So, it was actually very, very close between Snake Man and Shadow Man. Honestly, I won't be. I'm gonna keep the thing up for a while if more people want to keep voting that haven't voted yet. I won't be surprised if this gets changed if this gets changed to Shadow Man later. It's a toss up between those two. Did I know that Metal Man was weak to his own weapon? Yes, I did. Hence why he takes quadruple damage from slashing projectiles. If Mega Man fights him, Mega Man can kill him pretty quickly with the Metal Blade. Winner of Mega Man 4, Pharaoh Man. He jumps around doing either a short jump or a high jump. While jumping, he fires his Pharaoh shots at Mega Man, which are energy orbs that he conjures in his hand. He can charge up in place and fire a Pharaoh wave straight forward. He can jump high into the air and try to Goomba stomp the player. Notes. There we go. He takes double damage from energy attacks and 1.5 times damage from water attacks. Winner of Mega Man 5, Napalm Man. He jumps to move around. He always attacks right after a jump. He can fire up to 3 missiles straight forward that explode on contact. He'll do this if the player is far away. He can also shoot 2 grenades into the air at an arc that explode on contact. He does this if the player is close. he takes 1.5 times damage from projectiles, but double damage from solid projectiles. So, energy projectiles will hurt him, but not as much, but solid ones will do more damage. Mega Man 6 winner, Nightman. He carries a shield in front of himself that blocks attacks from the front. You can damage him from behind or while he's attacking. He'll run or jump toward Mega Man. When close, he'll lash his flail forward a fixed distance before pulling it back. He naturally takes 1.5 times damage from all attacks, but double damage from slashing projectiles. So, he takes more damage than the other Robot Master from everything, but this is just because he's harder to hit because of that shield. Mega Man 7 winner, Slash Man. He moves by jumping all over the place. When close, he attacks with his slash claw forward. He'll wall jump to the ceiling to drop orbs that shatter into a red liquid on contact. Just touching or getting covered in this liquid will slow you down. After using this, he'll slide down the wall while charging up, then lunge downward into your location claws first. He takes double damage from fire and ice attacks. I don't think adding Napalm Man would go well with the public. Why not? Yeah, he's an artillery robot, but like, he's been around for a while. Winner of Mega Man 8, Tengu Man. He flies around constantly in the air. He can throw his fan across the ground to create a tornado hold that flies upward. If you get caught in this, you'll be blown into the air, and Tengu Man will fly up next to you and kick you back down to the ground with an axe kick. He can blow a blast of air forward that flies with an upward arc. He can dive across the ground to try to ram the player. And he takes double damage from ice attacks. The winner of Mega Man 9 with a total sweep. This wasn't even close. Splash Woman. You fight underwater, so she swims around in the air. She swims around the area. She'll swim from side to side, sitting on her trident while ascending and singing. 3 fish will appear that swim from side to side, ascending, which can ram the player if they're in the fish's way. Once at the top of the screen, she follows the player's location, standing above them while firing up to 6 trident-shaped lasers straight down, and afterward, she dives down while stabbing her trident straight down. Then she repeats. She takes double damage from explosions. The winner of Mega Man 10, again, a total sweep, was the sheep. Sheep Man. Why my music stopping? Stop stopping. Can shoot a shock ball that quickly bounces on the ground forward. It can bounce at varying heights. Jumps high into the air and splits into 4 clouds that move into differing positions. Then strike lightning down one at a time. When the lightning hits the ground, it spreads out a short distance horizontally. The final lightning bolt also releases 2 shock balls that travel across the ground full screen in the opposite directions. The final cloud also turns back into Sheep Man. The clouds, though, can be destroyed before they can shoot lightning. He takes double damage from projectiles. And the winner of Mega Man 11, Block Man. He can run and jump around. He can summon 4 blocks in the air over the player's location that all rain down. The player can usually fit between the blocks to avoid them unless they're too big, like Bowser. He can summon blocks from his position and throw them across the screen horizontally. He usually shoots 2 at a time at differing altitudes. He takes double damage from explosions. Now, I know Blockman has like that giant form when the power gear is activated or whatever, but I'm not including that here. Just his basic attacks. The World Boss, Wily Machine. This is a 3-phase boss fight. This will be a unique Wily Machine with inspiration taken from past machines as well as new programs. Was I worried about power overlap? A little bit, yeah. It ended up not being too bad for the most part. Like the closest power overlap you can probably argue is probably Gutsman and Blockman. But even then, their attacks are so different. Like it's not that big a deal. Alright, the Wily Machine. Phase 1. A floating machine with a skull on the front. It's constantly moving, shifting between moving left and right or up and down. Attacks. It shoots a lot of energy orbs. They can be shot directly at the player, they can fly in an upward arc forward, or they can be shot into the air then rain down. Spinning spikes can protrude from the bottom of the machine, leading to it hovering over the player's location, then drop down, trying to crush them. A cannon can be revealed from the inside of the mouth of the skull, and after some charge up, it can fire large energy pulses forward. Let's see. You can attack the cannon to interrupt this attack if enough damage is done to it, and attacking the cannon specifically also deals extra damage to the machine's health. Missiles can be shot from the back of the machine that home in on the player. Phase 2. This phase begins when the machine's health drops below half. The skull of the machine is destroyed, revealing Dr. Wily's cockpit. He reuses many of his attacks, but now he's much more aggressive, and the machine also moves faster. Let's see, attacks. The energy orbs he fires all now spiral as they fly, so they literally just like do this deal. Hands. Which makes them awkward to avoid. Beyond the spiral, though, he shoots the orbs in the same prior patterns. He can shoot bombs that bounce on the ground forward. When he tries to crush the player with his aforementioned press attack, he fires all of his upward-facing artillery to propel himself downward faster. This move now creates a shockwave that spreads outward when it hits the ground. All weapons fired actually will rain down after he lands, but using this attack also slightly damages the machine. He's becoming reckless and desperate. So he's desperate in this current state, so he's becoming more reckless. So he's actively damaging his own machine while in phase 2. The cannon is now fully exposed, and it just keeps firing shots wildly. Attacking the cannon still deals extra damage, and he will keep firing the homing missiles non-stop. So this phase is very dangerous. He's shooting things non-stop at you, but he's actively hurting himself in the process. So while it's a dangerous phase, it's also one that generally won't last that long if you can avoid the attacks long enough generally. Phase 3. This phase begins when the machine's health is depleted. He gains a whole new health bar for his final phase. He fights in a unique type of Wily capsule. It's able to move around the area normally, but more often it'll disappear into darkness, then reappear in a new spot. Once Wily is defeated, he bows and begs for his life. From there, you can choose to either leave him be or launch him away to KO him. Doesn't matter either way, it's just funny. Alright, for his attacks while in Wily capsule mode. It can fire energy pot shots directly at the player. It can drop a shock ball straight down. If this shock ball hits the ground, it'll spread apart into opposite directions as 4 new balls that travel across the ground. 2 of them move fast, 2 of them slower. And he's very likely to disappear after using this move. It can conjure 4 to 5 energy orbs that quickly dart into the player's direction and can turn on a dime up to 3 times to chase the player. It can also conjure 2 larger orbs of this variety, but they can only change one. But they can only change one direction. It can configure a bunch of orbs. Conjure. It can conjure a bunch of orbs that orbit the capsule for a bit, then split off into all directions. Let's see. He can shoot shock balls into the air that, when they reach the top of the screen, travel horizontally towards the player's direction, then drop down and over the player. And it can conjure a shield of energy around itself, then fly off screen, then charge at the player across the screen, disappearing to the other side. Do you leave him by just walking off screen, or that, or I imagine like you just wait long enough and it'll just go to the result screen for you to move you to the next form. Hope you brought some rope after defeating Wily. Who needs rope when you can just knock the guy in the head? All right, so how's the Mega Man world sound, guys? How's the Mega Man world sound to you all? Alrighty, so the next world then, the Fit world, the Motion Fit world. So this is both Wii Fit and Ring Fit Adventure. Cause let's be honest here, I was not gonna be able to fill out a whole world with just Wii Fit, so I figured, okay, let's look for fitness-related motion games, and Ring Fit Adventure kind of falls directly into this category. So. This is more so a Ring Fit Adventure world than it really is a Wii Fit world, but hey, it's fit. It's fit. Fits in the name. So I think it counts, right, guys? Right? Right? I did look at a bunch of those other games, like Boxing Switch or Wii Sports Resort, and like, I think the Ring Fit Adventure, because the Ring Fit Adventure actually is like a proper like kind of RPG. So like, yeah. Thank you, Good Helmet Jr. It fits. I think it's fine. All right. I actually do kind of want to get Ring Fit Adventure, honestly, because I do need to properly exercise, because I haven't really been able to do my usual exercises properly ever since my hand got injured. So probably what I'm going to do, because I actually have been gaining weight, sadly, ever since my hand got hurt. So probably what I'm going to do is, like, once my hand feels better, I probably am going to get Ring Fit Adventure just to try to get myself back into shape. All right. The enemies of the Fit Adventure world. First are Hop-ins. They hop to move around, patrolling the area. When aggressive, they charge at the player with a lunging headbutt. If this attack is shielded, they fly backward. They may randomly sit around and do nothing. And they do have two variants. There's Gob Hoplins, which are larger versions that are slightly stronger, and Gold Hoplins, which are rarer versions that tend to run away when they see the player, but when defeated, they drop rare items or a lot of gold. Mata Rays. They float around in the air aimlessly. When aggressive, they'll try to whip their spiked tails at the player. They can lay flat on the ground to heal themselves, or they can slip underneath other enemies and heal them, or they can just float in place, just to vibe. Puffer Squish. They slowly roll around patrolling the area. When aggressive, they blow a strong stream of wind forward, which deals no damage but pushes everything in range away. Touching its body will bounce the player away. Even hitting it with melee attacks will push you backward. And it may occasionally just deflate to rest for a bit. Megafauna. Fly around in the air patrolling the area. They have a high aggro range, and if they spot you, they alert all other nearby enemies. When aggressive, they scream to fire compressed sound waves toward the player. They can make noise to increase one of the stats of nearby enemies. It can sing enthusiastically to raise the offensive power of all enemies, or make a horn sound to alert all nearby enemies and increase their defense. It also may occasionally just stop to rest its sore throat, which I probably need to be doing here soon. Ah. Alright, Chomp Mechs. These are actually from Wii Fit, believe it or not. Wii Fit actually does have something akin to enemies in it here and there. Chomp Mechs, bear trap-like enemies that move forward while constantly biting. They turn at walls and ledges, just touching them deals damage, and they tend to hang out on platforms or elevated locations. Bumblebees. They fly around in the air in a fixed path, just touching them deals damage. These are just bumblebees that are a part of that balance bubble game where you have to balance on the Wii board to try to move yourself in a bubble to the finish line, and if the bees touch your bubble, it pops. So strong enemies, kettlebells. Large and slow enemies that tend to sit in one spot until aggressive. When aggressive, they try to leap at the player with their full body weight to ram the player. They can jump over the player to try to crush them, which will bury the player, and when close, they can try to bite the player. May just start spacing out, just sitting there. They're immune to flinching from weaker attacks, they cannot be grabbed, and they do have a variant in the form of the bell dogs, which are much larger and stronger versions of the kettlebells that are completely immune to flinching. Why on earth does Wii Fit have sentient bear trap enemies? It was a part of another balance mini game where you had to like walk down a tightrope, and on the tightrope were these chomp mechs that like chomped forward towards you on the tightrope, so you had to jump over them while keeping your balance. Scuttlebells, so crab-like enemies. Like they crab walk around patrolling the area. When aggressive, they lift their large dumbbell-like arms into the air and start crab walking toward the player. When close to a player while their arms are in the air, they'll slam them down forward to try to smash the player. They can also just do a normal straight punch with one of their claws. After using their arm slam attack, it may take a second to rest. They're immune to flinching from weaker attacks, and they can also not be grabbed. Nautylus. They slowly walk around patrolling the area. They have large shells, so they take reduced damage from all attacks. When aggressive, they spit high pressure. They spit a high pressure stream of water at the player, which actually will deal damage while also pushing them away. They may also get distracted and just sit in place for a bit. And they have a variant in the form of mollusks. Excuse me. Slightly tankier, and they have spikes on their shells, so direct contact will deal damage. Then there's the Rhythm Sandbag. Stationary sandbags with arms and wearing boxing gloves. So you guys are hearing right. The sandbags are ready to fight back. They're tired of your nonsense. They're fighting back now. They move their gloves over specific spots on their body. If you attack a glove, it will counterattack you. You need to hit it in the open spots to deal damage. When defeated, they can drop a lot of gold. So gold also is this world. So I mentioned before how some worlds will have like a world collectible where if you collect 100 of them within that world, you gain an extra stock. So just a little incentive for you to actually stop and want to fight these things, which normally can't even chase you. Obstacle enemies. Soccer Miis. Miis that hang out in the background and kick balls forward toward the path. Getting hit by the ball deals damage. Mini bosses. Stomper. Long-legged enemies that move quickly. They run around and jump constantly, usually hovering around the player until it attacks. For its attacks, it can leap at the player for a flying kick. If this attack gets shielded, the Stomper will start stomping on your shield slowly, whittling it down, then jump off. Perfect shielding this attack will cause it to flail backwards. It can use the pinwheel spin, where it'll lunge at the player while spinning like a drill. This also deals a lot of shield damage, but perfect shielding in this attack will also cause it to bounce back immediately, which totally canceling it. It can leap into the air, then drop down to try to stomp on the player. It can do a downward stomp attack while in the air, which will meteor smash you. It can call for backup, summoning random enemies to the arena. And it may also randomly start looking around restlessly, leaving itself vulnerable for a bit. Second mini-boss, Drago Statues. Large, completely stationary enemies. There's a big one in the center and two smaller ones on the left and right of the arena. Each have their own health bars, so you must destroy each statue individually. The big one has double the health of the smaller ones. They have very few attacks though. They can throw hook punches forward. They can fire beams from their eye towards the player's location. The big one's eyes can flash, which will lower the player's defense, and this cannot be evaded. And the big one can also summon enemies to the arena. So ideally, it's kind of up to you how you want to approach this. Do you want to just go ahead and take out the two little ones first, which are easier to deal with, Or do you want to take out the clearly more dangerous one in the center first, while also dealing with the little ones? It's up to you how you deal with that. Alright, the world boss. Drago, Mr. Big Buff Dragon himself. I don't even want to know the amount of, I don't even want to know how many people probably are, what's a PJ way to say this? Attracted to this dragon? Not really sure I want to know. Anyway, Drago. A massive enemy that tends to sit in one spot exercising. He can take large struts toward the player. He can change his body color, which strengthens certain attacks depending on the color. He's more prone to using those specific attacks that match the color. He also takes extra damage from the same kinds of attacks depending on the color. So I also should mention, so a feature of this world specifically, it kind of goes into the Ring Fit Adventure color system. Most enemies in this world come in 5 colors, and using certain attacks on them will deal more damage. Red enemies take more damage from arm-related attacks, so like punches or slaps or whatever. Blue enemies take more damage from leg-related attacks, so kicks. Yellow enemies take more damage from body check related attacks, or even head and tail attacks. So yellow normally is just the abs, but I'm relegating that to also the body attacks and head and tail. Green, which normally represents yoga, those enemies will just take more damage from special attacks specifically. And colorless enemies, which are normally like black or brown, they have no weakness. So those are probably the harder ones to deal with. So this does also apply to Drago whenever he is one of these colors. So when he's red, so when he's red, he's more prone to using his arm attacks, but he takes more damage from arm attacks. Blue, more prone to kicks, but he takes more damage from kicks. Yellow, he'll use his body attacks, but he takes more damage from bodies. And when he's in his black color, he'll use a balance of everything and has no weaknesses. When below half health, he gets angry, which his attacks will hit harder, and he'll start using more moves. Hold on 1 second. Okay. Let's see here. Dealing enough damage to his head, though, can disorient him, leaving him vulnerable for a little bit. For Drago's attacks, he has a powerful hook punch. He can do a powerful hook punch toward the player. Oh my gosh, my goodness, my tongue. I'm getting tripped over my tongue, guys. Ah. I'm out of water too. I'm sad. Anyway, he can follow this up with a second punch with his other arm, and the second punch can be angled differently depending on the player's location. So if the player was on the ground and he punches, his first punch may go into there, but if the player jumps up, his second punch will go into that there. So his punches follows those locations. While he's red, though, whenever he uses this move, his punches will also shoot these giant fist apparitions toward the player, and they do count as projectiles. But it should be mentioned, because they are projectiles, that they can be reflected. How's my hands? He can smash the ground in front of himself with a double-fisted hammer punch. This does a lot of shield damage, and while he's red, this attack fires a fist apparition that travels low to the ground. He can stomp one of his feet into the spot in front of himself. Getting hit by his foot will bury the player, and when blue, a foot apparition projectile will fly upward from the ground, from underground at the player's location. So when he stomps down, imagine the apparition going underground and then flying up, trying to follow the player. He can do a backflip kick with his feet from low to high. When blue, this also shoots a bunch of small leg apparition projectiles forwards at different angles. While standing still, he can thrust his abs forward with a gut check. But when he's yellow, this also shoots an ab apparition projectile that flies straight forward. He can lunge across the screen to body check the player with his abs, but when yellow, his abs become shielded in an apparition, increasing its damage. His eyes may occasionally flash, which can weaken your character for a little bit. This cannot be avoided, and it can either weaken your offense or your defense, but when he's angry, it will decrease both. While he's angry, he can fly into the background and use one of 3 attacks. Then return to the stage once he's finished. He can either punch boxes at the stage that crash into the floor in random spots, and this deals moderate damage. He can pick up and throw large boulders into the air that fall from the top of the screen and smash the ground. This deals a lot of damage, but it's also the easiest. It's also probably the easiest to dodge. Or he can breathe flames and shoot a ton of fireballs that all fly past the screen in random locations. This is the weakest move that he uses, but it's also the hardest to dodge. When he's angry, he can also start charging up and then fire a powerful flare beam from his mouth downward. He always aims for the player's location. So once he's about to fire, just try to get out of his way. Or try to get out of the beam's way. Do swords and whatnot count as arm attacks? Gonna say yes, because you are using your arms for them. Let's see, he can also summon certain enemies that can fight or be used by Drago for certain attacks. If he summons scuttlebells, he'll usually summon 2 at a time, and he'll actually pick them up and hold them like dumbbells. When he's using this, his hook punch attack deals more damage, and you need to KO the scuttlebells while they're in his hand individually to get rid of them. He can summon Mata Rays, which will heal Drago often, so kill those guys as fast as possible. And he can summon Megafaunas, which will behave like they do normally, so they'll buff up Drago. So again, get rid of them quickly before they can buff them up too much. Alrighty, so that is the motion fit world. What do you guys think of this one? Even though it's really just mostly Ring Fit Adventure, I know, but not like I was gonna get allowed to Wii Fit. Sword counts as arm attacks, how it's a Raiden. Well, okay, in Raiden's case, it depends on how he's using the sword. If he's swinging it normally, it's an arm attack. If he's Strax kicking it, it's a kick attack. It's a leg attack. It just depends on how they swing their swords, alright? Don't be smart. Wii Fit Trainer is used for a Ring Fit Spirit, so it works. I mean, that makes sense, obviously. Alright, next world then. The Punch-Out world. This world is a boss gauntlet. There are no normal enemies, only mini-bosses, and one world boss that all vary in difficulty. Alright, weak enemies. Glass Joe. He's very cautious, so you usually need to go to him, and he can walk around. If his attacks miss, he's always left open for a bit. If you hit him while he's open, he gets dizzy for a bit, leaving him open. In general, he takes extra damage from everything, so this is the freebie boss, obviously. Should always mention they're always fought in this order. It's never random, it's always from weakest to strongest. Each boxer also has their own kind of personal stats here. So Glass Joe has very pitiful stamina, he never dodges, and he very rarely blocks. For his attacks, sometimes he'll just taunt, which just leaves him open. He has a straight punch attack, he may slightly back up and try to throw a hook punch, and he has his signature Viva la France, where he backs away and tries to taunt the player, then steps back and to throw an uppercut. But if you attack him while he steps back in, he automatically dies. So, the freebie. Von Kaiser actively tries to stay close to the player. He can walk toward the player. If his attacks misses, he'll be left open for a bit. If you hit him while he's open, he will get dizzy for a bit, leaving him open. Should mention, so this part really only applies for some of the earlier ones. The later Punch-Out bosses kind of will lose this feature. When at half health, he gets angry. So this is actually a feature that a lot of the Punch-Out bosses are going to have too. They get angry. And when they're angry, they'll start using more moves. Von Kaiser has very little stamina. He'll dodge sometimes, he'll block very rarely. Attacks, whenever he dodges you, he laughs at you, which actually can leave him vulnerable. He has his left jab, which he quivers and then throws a straight punch. He has his right uppercut, where he cocks his arm and then throws an uppercut with it. He has Mommy, which just has him hide behind his gloves and just be like, Mommy! But if you hit him in the head with a strong enough attack during this specifically, it automatically KOs him. For his angry attacks though, these are whenever he gets angry, he has his fast right jab where he'll yell Coco and then throw a quick punch. A delayed left uppercut where he'll back up, wait for a little bit to try to fake you out and then throw a quick punch. And then his spin attack, where he does that thing where he like backs up, kind of hits his head a little bit, and then just goes ah, and then like jumps forward with a giant like spinning punch. He's also way more likely to do this if you knock him to the ground. So yeah, because a lot of these boxers are susceptible to being flinched in general, or grabbed, or even grabbed. Like that means they can also be knocked to the ground and lay there for a bit. So some boxers actually will react to that. Disco Kid. He dances as he fights, making him slightly hard to catch, and tends to but he will tend to attack when close. So same thing. If he misses, he can be dizzied. When he's below half health, though, he becomes desperate. So some boxers become angry, others become desperate. Left during Pikmin, what did I miss? A lot. You missed quite a bit. You can always rewatch the VOD later, though. Hand diagnosis. So same amount of stamina as Von Kaiser, but he's way more likely to dodge and still blocks very, very little. And he's actually the first that's immune to flinching from weaker attacks specifically. So if you wanna like stun him, you have to hit him with stronger attacks. He likes to pose a lot, which will leave him open. He has his right jab. He has his left hook. He has the Disco Flurry, where whenever he's desperate, he'll roll his fists and then throw 3 quick punches. I'm trying not to. I'm so bad when it comes to like just wanting to be animated with you guys so you can see what I'm talking about, but I gotta be careful with my hand too. Sorry. So whenever you see me doing this and moving slow on purpose, I'm trying to like make sure my hand doesn't get hurt. He also has his jumping jack hook, where while desperate, he'll do up to 3 jumping jacks and then lunge at the player with hook punches. So he actually will actively chase you with this move. And he'll do this multiple times in a row up to the number of jumping jacks he did. Alright, King Hippo. Actively tries to stay close to the player. He can very slowly walk toward the player, or he can do short leaps to close the distance. If his attacks miss, he's left open for a bit, but he's the first that will not get dizzy. He takes extra damage if you attack his stomach, but he tends to guard that area when he's not attacking. If you hit his mouth while it's open, he'll move his arms off his stomach, giving you a chance to hit it. When you hit his stomach, his pants fall down, leaving him vulnerable to attacks until he can pull them back up. There's also a chance that his crown can fall off, and when it does, that's when he gets angry. The chance becomes even higher the lower his health is, and while he's angry, he uses more moves. He has 6 out of 10 stamina, so he's a big bulky guy. But he never dodges attacks, but he does have a high block chance. And he's actively immune to flinching from weaker attacks, and because of his size, he cannot be grabbed. He's too big. He has his overhead move, where he lifts his arm into the air and then swings it down. He has his jab, where he pulls his fist to his mouth and punches forward. He has his silent overhead, which he only does when he's angry, where it's the same as the normal overhead, but it's much faster. And then the delayed jab, which only done when angry, where same as the normal jab, but he delays it to try to fake you out. Then he has his ear clap, where he pulls back and then smashes his fists together with your head in between. He'll back up, doing just that. While angry, though, right after doing this, he'll also add that double hammer punch right afterward. But if you attack his stomach while he's backing up, like as he's reeling up for this, what? Oh. What did I type here? But I think I just went redundant again. Oh, I see what I did wrong here. Okay, so yeah, so doing this, while he backs up, it deals a lot of damage to him. So doing this will automatically get rid of the crown. So you're making him angry at the expense of, getting in a lot more damage quicker, effectively. Sorry, I had a brain fart there because I messed up how I typed this in. But yeah. Okay, anyway. All right. Piston Hondo, Mr. I'm going to cost Nintendo millions of dollars because I like to read Sailor Moon. Actively tries to stay close to the player. He can walk, run, or jump toward the player. If his attacks miss, he's left open for a bit. When below half health, he gets desperate and he gets more moves. He has 3 out of 10 stamina, 2 out of 5 dodgings, and 2 out of 5 blocks. He's also immune to flinching from weaker attacks. For his attacks, he has the bow taunt, which just leaves him vulnerable. He has his jab, where his eyebrow twitches and then he throws a punch. His hook, where he backs up and throws a lateral hook punch. Uppercut, where he crouches and then does an uppercut. The fake bow taunt, where he'll only do this when desperate, where he'll pretend to bow, but if you attack him, he'll dodge and then counterattack with a jab, so he gets a counter. When desperate, he has the delayed uppercut, which has him crouch, hold for a bit, then uppercut. And then he has his signature Hondo Rush, where he'll back up, shift side to side, and then lunge forward with 3 straight punches. If he's attacked with a smash attack right as he lunges, he'll automatically be KO'd, and when desperate, he'll randomly add other attacks at the end of the rush. So, he'll actively chase you during this attack, by the way. Alright. Bear Hugger. Actively tries to stay close to the player. He'll walk toward the player. If his attacks miss, he'll be left open for a bit. When below half health, he'll get angry and get new moves. 5 out of 10 stamina. He dodges very rarely, but he can dodge. 2 out of 5 blocking. Immune to flinching from weaker attacks, and he cannot be grabbed. For his attacks, he has his taunt, where he does the blah thing, which just leaves him open. Left hook, where he backs up and throws a hook punch. Overhead smash, where he backs up and then throws a vertical punch. Delayed left hook and delayed overhead, which are the same thing, but he holds them for a little bit to fake you out. And then there's the bear hug, where he backs up and then lunges forward while pulling his arms together to try to grab and squeeze the player. And for this case, this actually will act as a command grab. He'll actually grab you and start squeezing you to deal damage. And when angry, he'll do catch and release, the catch and release bear hug, where he'll use which will have him use the bear hug up to 3 times in a row. All right, getting into stronger enemies now. Before I do that, let me go refill my water real quick. Be right back, guys. I return. Stay hydrated. Okay. And the music stopped as well. Let me get that back up. Alright, Great Tiger. He tends to play around the player, moving around constantly. He can walk, run, jump, or teleport. And he'll attack when close. When he dodges, he teleports and can throw out an attack out of his teleport. When below half health, he'll get desperate and get more moves. He has 4 out of 10 stamina, 3 out of 5 dodging, and 2 out of 5 block chances. He's immune to flinching from weaker attacks and cannot be grabbed. He has his jab where he crosses his arms and throws a punch, but if this is shielded, he staggers for a bit, which does leave him vulnerable. He has his left uppercut where he crouches and throws an uppercut. Delayed right uppercut where he vanishes, then reappears with an uppercut, generally tries to vanish close to you. The rushing magic attack where he disappears, then reappears in the background along with an illusion of himself. They shift places, then rush the stage toward the player one at a time. The order they rush in is random, but only the real one can deal damage. The illusion is harmless. He has his own ear clap attack, where when desperate, he'll swing his fists forward trying to clap the player. And then when desperate, he has the Mirage Dance, where he'll teleport to behind the stage and power up with his magic. He'll then send out pairs of clones toward the stage. He'll then send out pairs of clones toward the stage multiple times. One clone is real, one is fake. Getting hit by the clone deals a lot of damage, and the fake one is harmless. He can do this up to 5 times, and then when he ends this move, he returns to the stage with a spinning lariat. If this misses, though, he gets dizzy, which will leave him vulnerable. Alright, Don Flamenco. He actively tries to stay close to the player. He can walk, run, or jump toward the player. He will not throw out attacks until you attack him first. He mainly likes to counterattack. Attacking his head, though, has a chance to cause his toupee to fly off, with the likelihood increasing as his health gets lower. If his toupee falls off, he drops the counter strategy and becomes highly aggressive. So it's the same kind of deal as King Hippo's crown. It's like his patterns change once he loses his headpiece. He has 5 out of 10 stamina, 4 out of 5 dodge chance, so he's likely to dodge, and a 3 out of 5 block chance. He's also immune to flinching from weaker attacks and cannot be grabbed. Attacks. Kamen mi amor. He backs up, lifts his arm into the air, and shakes it, then swings it below to around with the throw and uppercut. So he does like this kind of deal. He has his normal uppercut where he lifts his arm into the air, then swings it below and around to throw another uppercut. He will also use this move right after getting off the floor. So like if you knock him to the ground, he'll get up and then use this move immediately. He has the left hook where he backs up holding his right arm straight and then swings it forward with a hook. This is something he can use right after dodging an attack. The left jab where he backs up, claps, and then throws a punch, He can do this right after blocking a move. There's the rage uppercut, the rampage uppercut, where when angry, he'll combine a bunch of his attacks together for a combo attack, always ending in his uppercut. There's the spinning back fist punch, where when angry, he can do a dodge attack, letting him sidestep while attacking, while also countering you with a hook punch. Then there's the Rose Flurry, where he steps back, claps his hands while counting up to 3, then throws clothesline swings up to the number he counted. He lunges at you before each swing, so he will actively chase you, and he may try to fake you out and use the uppercut right after using all 3 of these 3 swings. Alright, next is, I guess, the fan favorite, Aaron Ryan. This guy does not stop moving. He'll actively run away and chase you down. He mainly runs around and jumps. There's no slowing down with this guy. He's on the move. Let's see. You deal extra damage to him if you attack him right as he's about to attack, and this will also cancel his attacks. So if you're quick enough, you can beat him out. You can get some damage done on him. He also loves trash talking your character. So I just imagine Aaron Ryan having unique dialogue for every character he fights, just trash talking them the entire time. Because Aaron Ryan seems like that kind of player, right? Makes sense to me, I'd say. When below half health, he'll get angry. He has 4 out of 10 stamina, 4 out of 5 dodge chance. He dodges a lot, but he never blocks. He can also pick up and use items. He's the first of the boxers that can actually use the items that appear on stage. He's also immune to flinching from very weak attacks, so it's very weak. So like very, very little damage attacks, he'll ignore those, but usually most attacks will flinch him because he's hard to hit anyway. He also cannot be grabbed because he's too wiggly. Attacks, taunts. He may get cocky and walk up to the player wiping his nose to revoke them. He has an overhead where he launches at you with an overhead punch from low to high. High to low. If it was low to high, that would not be overhead. He has a hook punch where he knocks it in his own head, then swings his arm forward for a hook punch. An uppercut where he throws his fist forward for an uppercut. Counter uppercuts where if you attack him randomly, he'll throw out a powerful uppercut right after taking damage. So generally, the best time to attack him is during his own attacks. Because otherwise, if you manage to hit him, he may just fight back. He has his headbutt, where he launches himself toward the player with a powerful headbutt. If you shield right as he hits you, he gets dizzy, leaving him vulnerable for a bit. When angry, though, he may start using this move to counter right after taking damage using his attack startups. So when he's angry, he'll start trying to headbutt you, even if you can cancel his other moves. So just be wary of that. He has his elbow smash, where when angry, he'll jump into the air and try to fall out of the player with an elbow smash. And he has his rope attack, where he pulls out a boxing glove flail and will whip it around in various ways. He can whip it overhead, he can whip it forward laterally, or he can whip it forward from high to low. Then lastly, there's his desperate attack. When his health is depleted, he'll pull out his rope whip and try to swing it forward as he falls. Just dodging it will be fine. Just don't get hit by it is all. You know, I always wondered, what happens if that desperate attack actually KOs you? I never actually knew what happens what happens with that. Like, you both just fall onto the ground, or will he get right back up and start taunting you? I wonder. All right, last strong enemy, Soda Popemski. Actively tries to stay close to the player. He can walk, run, jump, or jump toward the player. He takes reduced damage from his stomach, so don't attack the stomach. Attack his back or his head. If you knock him to the ground, he'll take a drink from his soda, heal a little bit, and gets right back up in a temporary angered state. So he doesn't stay angry forever like a lot of the other ones do, but he can get angry often. He has 7 out of 10 stamina, 3 out of 5 dodging, and a 3 out of 5 block chance. He can also pick up and use items, and he is immune to flinching from weaker attacks and cannot be grabbed. So in general, be careful about using those stronger attacks because you don't want to knock him to the ground and let him heal. Forward attack, he can taunt, where he chuckles at you, which leaves him vulnerable. He has his hook punch, where he throws a quick hook punch forward. His uppercut, where he crouches down and throws a high-reaching uppercut. He has soda drink, where he backs up, shows off his soda, then drinks it. This heals a lot of his health, but you can cancel it by attacking the bottle before he can drink it, but this will make him angry. And then he has his rage uppercuts, where whenever he gets angry, he'll always default to chasing the player and throwing constant uppercuts at them. And he's also guaranteed to do this if you knock him to the ground. So whenever he gets angry, he defaults to rage uppercuts. He also has a sidestepping hook, which works just like how it kind of did for Don Flamenco before, where it's actually a sidestep that can dodge an attack and let him, and then he can counterattack you with a hook punch. Alrighty, mini bosses. Bald Bull, probably the series staple boss, because Bald Bull, I believe, was in every single game so far. Actively tries to stay close to the player. He can walk, run, dash, or jump toward the player. He takes very little damage from attacks to his stomach. When his health goes below half, he gets angry. He hits harder, moves faster, and gets more moves while angry. When he's at 1 HP, you must hit him with a fully charged smash attack, or any move, or at least any move that does a ton of damage to finish him off. He endures any other attack, and this gets ignored if you can just smash attack his stomach during the bull charge, which I'll get to later. He has 8 out of 10 stamina, 2 out of 5 dodge chance, and a 4 out of 5 block chance, so he blocks often. He's completely immune to flinching and cannot be grabbed. For his attacks, he can taunt you, where he puts his hands to his hips and laughs at you. If you attack his stomach during this, though, he reels back, leaving him vulnerable for a brief time, which can let you potentially finish him off if he's at 1 health. Should hopefully give you enough time to fully charge one of your attacks. He has his rolling jab, where he rolls his hands and throws a jab. His right jab, where he rolls his hand and throws a jab, but the rolling lasts longer, so it'll fake you out. He has the Alan hook, where he pumps himself up and throws a hook punch. His uppercut, which is a strong and fast uppercut attack. His air overhead. So this is where things will start to get a little messy. Starting with Bull, the boxers will start chasing you in the air. The other ones couldn't before, but these guys will start jumping after you. So you can't just jump away from them. They will chase you even into the air and even get aerial attacks to get you back to the ground. So his air uppercut is a quick uppercut that can be used in the air, which can launch you even higher into the air if you're not careful. Or his air overhead, which is an overhead attack used in the air, which always meteor smashes you. What's Diplin doing back there? He's just hanging out. He's vibing. He has his delayed hook, where when angry, he'll start as if he's using the normal Alan hook, but then he'll delay it after punching himself out to fake you out. He has his body blow, where when angry, he'll do a low punch that deals a lot of hit stun, which can leave you open if you're not careful. Then, of course, there's the iconic bull charge. He backs up, starts up like a bull, then starts chasing the player for a powerful tackle. If you jump over him, he will turn to follow you. If he hits the boxing ring ropes, he'll ricochet and fly off into that direction, continuing the bull charge. He will stop eventually if it takes too long to hit you, but if you can smash attack his stomach while he charges, it deals a ton of damage to him and will knock him to the ground for a bit, leaving him vulnerable until he gets back up. And while he's angry, this lasts even longer, so keep that all in mind. Second mini-boss, Super Macho Man. Also actively tries to stay close to the player. He can walk, dash, or jump. He typically won't run. He also will actively trash talk the character because he's a jerky like Hollywood guy. When below half health, he'll get angry, which will make him move faster, and he gets more moves. He has a 9 out of 10 stamina, 4 out of 5 dodge chance, and a 3 out of 5 block chance. Immune to flinching and cannot be grabbed. Attacks. The photo op, where he poses for cameras and leaves himself vulnerable. Crunch time, where he crouches, then throws a rising hooking uppercut. Delayed uppercut, where he punches his fists together, then throws a spinning uppercut. Clothesline, where he flexes his arms, spins while holding out the other arm, and then tries to clothesline you. Pump it, which is another dodge attack, where he can sidestep a move and then counter you with a hook punch. Here are some brand new moves that I also added myself. Tubular. Flips and does a longitudinal backhanded punch while in the air, which always meteor smashes you. So this is one of his aerial attacks. Mainly used to try to get you back to the ground if you're hanging out in the air too long. Stay hydrated. Hang 10. When angry, he'll use his uppercut, but it's way faster. Release the Beast. When angry, he'll do a jumping uppercut attack that comes out very quickly. Wipeout. When angry, it's his Release the Beast, but he delays it to fake the player out. Aggro. When angry, he'll jump toward the player and try to hammer punch them. And this will always meteor smash, so this is potentially this is a move that can be used both on the ground or in the air. And then his triple clothesline. He puts on his sunglasses and starts posing, then throws out 3 quick and powerful spinning clothesline attacks. While he's posing, though, the screen becomes enveloped in camera flashes, making it hard to see where he is, so it can catch you off guard if you're not careful. And when angry, he moves way faster. Now, I do like the idea of this move. My only concern about my only concern with it is that because it is a camera flashing kind of deal, I am worried about the potential for seizures. Like, what do you guys think about that? Like, do you think there could be ways to be able to like pull that kind of thing off, where it can be distracting but not dangerous to those with epilepsy? Yeah. Because I love the idea. I'm just worried about like that kind of thing. Maybe just long flashes and not like a bunch. Less bright. Yeah, like they don't necessarily need to be bright. They just need to kind of obscure like parts of the screen to make it where he can attack you. Because that was also the original intent of the move. Like he puts on the sunglasses while the cameras flash. We'll come back to this one, because, yeah, that is the one thing I'm worried about with it, as regarding the epilepsy. But I still like the idea, but, like, we'll come back to it here and there. Alright, the world boss, the world champion, Mr. Sandman, the most dangerous boxer of them all. Actively tries to stay close to the player. He can walk, run, dash, or jump toward them. When below health, he becomes angry. He hits harder, moves faster, and gets new moves. He has the most stamina out of all the boxers, and he will actively dodge and block your attacks. You got to be much more aggressive when it comes to countering him, more than just trying to like fight wildly. Also immune to flinching and cannot be grabbed. Attacks. Boo. He quickly yells boo, which will stun your character in place for a bit if they were too close. And the range of this move increases when he gets angry. So he's actively intimidating you. He's like catching you off guard. Overhead. He throws a high to low vertical punch. Delayed overhead, same thing, but he yells stand still and delays it for a bit to fake you out. Hook. Throws a powerful hook punch forward really quickly. Delayed hook. Backs up, yells night night, then throws a powerful punch forward, which, again, to fake you out. Running uppercuts. Runs at the player and throws an uppercut when he gets close. Original moves made up by me. Over the moon. An overhead punch while in the air. Always meteor smashes you. Hit the hay. An anti-air overhead hook from back to front. So it's a move designed to catch off guard those who try to stay above him. Then of course, Dreamland Express. He poses with his arm held down. If you wait too long to attack him during his pose, not power. During this pose, he'll lunge at you and throw an uppercut. He can do this lunging uppercut up to 5 times, and dodging every uppercut will leave him vulnerable to damage for a bit. So when I say lunge, I mean he actively chases you. So you can't just go to the other side of the screen and expect him to miss. No, he'll chase you. During this, though, he can also yell boo while he's posing to stun you in place, and then throw that uppercut while you're vulnerable. When he's angry, though, if you attack him during the pose, he will sidestep the attack and counter you with an incredibly powerful counter hook. So when he's angry, don't attack him during the pose. You can attack him while he's posing before that, but don't attack him when he's angry during that pose. He will destroy you. Triple jab. When angry, he can throw 3 fast jabs forward in a row. Crash. When angry, he jumps toward the player and tries to attack them with an aerial straight punch pointed down, which will always meteor smash. Wink punch. When angry, he can throw very fast and powerful uppercuts. You'll know he's about to do this when you see him wink. And when he's at very low health, he'll start spamming his wink punches. Dodging them all will eventually wear him out, leaving him vulnerable to finish him off. So how does the Punch-Out world sound? A big mini boss gauntlet. All right, next up, and this is gonna be the last world that I go over before the end of the stream, because yeah, we've actually already passed 2 hours, like 24 minutes ago. But I'll finish this up with the Mii world, because actually this is actually the last world that I fully finished. Because after this is the Pikmin world, but I haven't been able to finish that one yet. So this is the last world that I've gotten done so far. Well, done. Enemy-wise, anyway. I still need to go over all the items and, like, think of, like, how the world fully functions and such. Alright, the Mii world. Enemies. Find Mii Ghost. They float around aimlessly. When aggressive, they follow the player around. They can do a little spook attack that stuns players in place. They can also vanish and reappear in a new spot, and they cannot be grabbed. And they do have a variant as Shield Ghosts, where they hold shields forwards that nullify melee attacks from the front. So the Find Mii Ghosts are pretty harmless. They can just hold you in place, though. Find Mii Slime. Slowly move around on the ground aimlessly. When aggressive, they shimmy over to the player and try to headbutt them. They also have two variants. They have Shield Slimes, which are the same as the Shield Ghosts, and then Blue Slimes, which have slightly more health, and they can also heal itself or other enemies. Monster Manor Smiling Specters. Float around patrolling the area. When aggressive, it chases the player and tries to strike them with a downward double slap with their arms, and this deals a lot of hit stun. This is their scare move. And then they have their lick attack, where they can swing their big tongue forward to slap the player. They also cannot be grabbed because ghosts. Then we have Mii Face Rock Moth. These are from Miitopia. They fly around in the air aimlessly. Each one has a random set of Mii eyes. Usually appear in swarms. When aggressive, they'll charge at the player and try to ram them. And they have a single variant known as the Poison Moths. Each one has a random Mii mouth, and they spray poisonous dust clouds forward, which will poison the player if they touch it. Then there's Mii Face Goblins. They like to ambush the players. Otherwise, they'll typically just walk around. Each one has a random set of Mii eyes. When aggressive, it'll swing its big nose forward to attack. But after doing this, they immediately run away, so they're cowardly. They do have a variant known as the Mage Goblin, though. Each one has a random set of Mii eyes and glasses. They can cast long-range magic spells that appear over the player's location, then deal damage once they go off. So, just to dodge them, just move out of the way. Then there's the Mii Face Imp. They hover around patrolling the area. Each one has one random Mii eye. When aggressive, they'll stab the player with their tridents. And they have two variants. There's the Clever Imps, which are slightly bigger. Each one has a random set of Mii eyes and glasses. And they have an additional attack where they can stab the trident into the ground, causing it to stab up under the player's location. Then there's the Fiend, a very rare but deadly enemy. They take greatly reduced damage from all attacks, but they have very little health. It fights with a scythe that it swings forward, and it can cast a spell into the player's location that, if you don't move out of the way fast enough, it will automatically KO you. For the strong enemies, we have Find Mii Armored Ghosts. Hover around in the air, low to the ground, patrolling the area. They take reduced damage from melee attacks specifically. When aggressive, it'll chase the player and try to hit them with their spear, swinging it from high to low vertically. It can also stab their spear straight forward. It also likes to protect other enemies by positioning itself between the player and other enemies. They are immune to flinching from weaker attacks, and they cannot be grabbed. Monster Manor Vampires. These like to hide and ambush the player. They slowly move around or can transform into vampire bats. Into vampire bats and fly around erratically. When aggressive, they can open their capes up and summon a bunch of small bats that fly forward that can ram the player. And they can try to lunge at the player to bite you, which heals them for half of the damage that they deal. Me-face griffin. They walk around. They can walk on the ground or fly in the air, moving around to patrol the area. Each one has a random set of me eyes repeated twice on its wings, so it has 6 eyes on its wings. When aggressive, they can charge at the player and flap both of its wings to hit them. It can also let out a loud cry, which stuns the player if they were too close. Then there's the Me-face Minotaur. Slowly walk around patrolling the area. They have a single random me-eye. When aggressive, it'll leap at the player and swing its hammer forward to smash it on the ground, trying to crush the player. And they can also smash the ground, causing a wide array of spikes to protrude from the ground under the player's location. For the Me mini bosses, first there's the Find Me Armored Arc Fiend. It slowly floats around following the player. It takes reduced damage from all attacks. For its attacks, it can smash its hammer into the ground forward. It can swing its hammer laterally forward, so it swings it forward like that. No obstacles? None that I can think of immediately. Like, do you have any, like, suggestions, Ray? In terms of, like, obstacle enemies or, like, specifically enemies that act as obstacles that cannot be destroyed. Like, do you have any suggestions for that? Because there was a few worlds that I've gone through that didn't have any obstacle enemies. So, you don't know, okay. Because this is the first world where you brought that up, where it doesn't have any obstacle enemies. Alright, well, then don't worry about it for now. Alright. The Arc Fiend can fly into the air, then smash its hammer into the ground when it lands. And this causes a short-range shockwave that expands outward. It can cause spirits and wisps to emit from its armor, knocking away players that are too close. And this will also curse the player, inverting their horizontal controls for a limited time. It can also fortify itself with magic, nullifying damage from attacks that do less than a certain amount of damage for a limited time. So, like, very weak attacks will do no damage to it while it's fortified like this. It's also able to summon armored ghosts to the field to back it up. Other mini-boss, Monster Manor Spectral Knight. They tend to stand still and only move when it attacks. For its attacks, it can stab its javelin forward, aiming at the player. It can use Skewer, where it charges across the screen while holding its javelin forward. Being on its path will deal damage, but you will take more damage if you're hit by the javelin specifically. If you're behind it, the skeleton horse it's riding can kick you with its back legs. It can also swing its javelin longitudinally upward, so it's like a spear uppercut. The horse can also stomp the ground around it, causing small quakes that launch the player into the air, and this also causes a small amount of debris to fall from the ceiling. And it also has the move Diary Defender, where it casts a spell on itself that reduces the amount of damage it takes for a limited amount of time. Alrighty. And the world boss, the Dark Lord from Miitopia. A semi-large enemy that floats in the air. Can sit in place or float into different spots, but it can also teleport to different spots. Their face is randomly chosen from one of the Miis in your system. When their health goes below 1/4, they steal all but one of your remaining stocks. You can get them back one at a time as you deal damage to the Dark Lord. So this is in reference to how during Miitopia, dude literally snatches your party members like on 3 separate occasions. So in this case, remember how I brought up before, you can set up your like this theoretical adventure mode. You can set it up where you can choose how many stocks you start off with, and you can also choose to either play as just one character throughout the whole thing, or select multiple characters up to the number of stocks you chose. So that's what this is referencing. When he's at low health, he'll literally snatch the rest of your characters, and you gotta just deal damage to them to get them all back. He also takes extra the Dark Lord also takes extra damage if you attack the necklace specifically. If you already have one stock, though, what would happen then? Nothing. Just nothing. Like, he just won't do it. Like, he has nothing to steal. Like, he can't steal anything. He can't steal extra stuff if you have no extra stuff. So he just won't do it. Or at the very least, he'll do the animation showing him do it, but nothing will happen. So either way. For his attacks, the Dark Lord can slap the ground in front of himself. They can conjure a dark energy orb and then throw it at the player forward. They can charge to the other side of the screen like a drill and can even do this twice in a row if they want. The Dark Lord can have a command grab where they can try to grab your character, and if they do, they squeeze your character in their hand and then slam you into the ground. And then after doing this actually will like weaken your offensive power for a bit. The Dark Lord can cast Nightmare, where they cast a spell onto the player's location, and if not avoided, it will put the player to sleep for a limited time. While the sleep, you suffer from a nightmare and take constant damage, and the higher your damage was, the longer you stay asleep for. They can use Rock Slide, where they use Psychokinesis to lift a bunch of rocks into the air from the background, and then they all fall all over the stage from the ceiling. And then lastly is Face Steal. The Dark Lord will steal a face from one of the Miis in your system, and then summon an imp to the stage. But if you're actually playing as a Mii fighter, they can steal your face. You can still fight, but you just have no face until you defeat the imp that took it. Yeah. So dude is snatching up your Miis. Now, of course, this is assuming that you're playing on... Like, this is assuming that you'd be playing this on a system that has Miis, but, like, I imagine if the Mii fighter were in this game, that could, you know, that could give you the opportunity to be able to make Miis anyway, so... Can they take Miis from your Miitopia save data? I don't see why not, assuming, you know... assuming that whatever, like, theoretical Smash game with this adventure mode is on is even on a Switch. It could be on a different console entirely, like a future console or whatever, so... Obstacle enemy, the Genie of the Lamp? No, that guy's a nerd. That guy's a loser. No one likes that guy. Alright, but that's the Mii world. What do you guys think? At least of the enemies, anyway. Now, I was thinking about having the Darker Lord be like an alternative boss. Like, you know, like the harder version boss instead of the Dark Lord. But I still have to beat Miitopia. So once I do and get a better idea of what's going on with that, then I'll decide on that one. One star, lack of a hyena with a gun. That guy's also a nerd. No one likes the hyena with a gun. He has a gun. That's why no one likes him. Dark Emperor, there's just nowhere to put him. Alrighty, well, that's where I'm going to go ahead and end things off here, guys. Well, I guess before I do, something I should also mention as well, I did go back to a lot of the other ones, and I removed some attacks from some mini-bosses, because I'm going to start trying to, like, limit the mini-bosses' attacks to at least, like, maybe at most 7 attacks, at most. Like, they don't have to have 7 attacks. It's just up to 7 attacks. Like, I don't want the mini-bosses to have too much, because they're supposed to be mini-bosses. They're not supposed to have that much. Something that I also need to go back and do as well, to a lot of the enemies in the prior ones, I need to go back and determine, like, their weaknesses. Like, I need to figure out, like, what a lot of these enemies are actually weak to, and then determine that. Because I thought about that when I went back to Pokemon, the Pokemon world, and, like, oh, wait a minute, these are Pokemon, so they would have weaknesses. So, like, let's go down to them. Yeah, so, like, yeah, like Zubat, yeah, would be weak to, like, electric, ice, or energy, which could also be psychic. Houndour could be, like, weak to water and melee, so fighting, but then also take reduced from ice, dark, and energy. Nuzleaf, weak to fire, ice, melee, resist, slash, darkness, energy, yada yada yada. You get the idea. So that's something I'm gonna have to do, like, with a lot of these enemies in the past, where it's like I gotta determine, like, what enemies are weak to what, if they have any weaknesses at all. So again, kind of go back to what I was saying before, where some characters, when you fight with them, like, depending on who you're playing as going through these adventure modes, would have innate strengths against certain enemies, but might struggle against others. Am I planning to somehow summarize this into a normal video? Yes. Once my hand heals and I'm able to draw again, I would like to start making a brand new series where I go over, like, once I fully finish the concepts for each world, go over, like make a video per world. So, like one world can be about Super Mario, like, one video can be about the Super Mario world, and then a video about the Donkey Kong world, and so on and so forth. So, like, it's not going to be one giant video covering them all. It's separate videos to put into a playlist covering each individual world. Before we leave, I want to say that the Bruiser Brothers from Super Punch-Out can also be a cool mini-boss. The Bruiser Brothers are also nerds. They eat at Arby's. Alrighty. So that is where I'm going to go ahead and end this off here, guys. So, hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all next week. Hopefully I can get more, because, like, what's after this? So, like, oh yeah, obviously I gotta try to figure out something for the Animal Crossing world. Like, so I'll see what I'll do with that. Like, yeah, like I gotta start doing proper research on the Pac-Man world. After that, it's Xenoblade Chronicles, then the Duck Hunt Zapper games, Street Fighter, Final Fantasy, Bayonetta, Splatoon, and so on and so forth. So hopefully I can get a lot of these done, like over the weekend, and then before my next stream, we'll see what's going on with that. All right, that's where I'm gonna go ahead and end things off. Folks. I will talk to you all later. Have a good night, everyone.